context of white supremacy, Gus T, Renegade, Justice, and for our second broadcast of the day, program number 2. Hopefully, again, sharing constructive information on racism, white supremacy, and most importantly, how we are going to replace that system immediately. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the broadcast. I want to hop right to work. I think we had Dr. Booker T. Coleman on the broadcast just a few weeks back. He is one of the featured guests in the documentary film Hidden Colors by Tariq Nasheed, all about uncovering all of the many lies and deception that has been heaped upon us, Black people worldwide, under the system of white supremacy. And said we'd had several of the guests from that fantastic film on the program. And as our 2011 Blackout continues, thought it would be fitting to get one of the other guests on the program to share fantastic information. Our guest for today's broadcast, he will be holding a webinar this coming Sunday, September 4th. So that would be not today, obviously, but next Sunday. Next Sunday, September 4th. The webinar, it will be all about his book, The Wounded Womb. This, again, will be Sunday, September 4th. You can get all the information about this event. You can go to the website. It is uksnow.org. One more time, it is uksnow.org. But all the information you can get about the Sunday, September 4th live webinar will be at 7 p.m. Eastern. Again, examining the wounded womb. It will be Q&A. You'll have an opportunity to call in and ask questions and get more details about the book, more information if you've heard this book discussed before, but the author will be there available for, I believe it's at least 3 hours, Q&A to get your questions answered and just to get more about the book. So that will be, again, live next Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern, next Sunday, September 4th, and you can get more information, the website, uksnow.org. Again, our guest for today's broadcast, not only will he be featured in that webinar next Sunday, extensive resume. He is in the documentary film Hidden Colors. What to say, founder, director, and pastor of the Temple of the Healing Spirit, as well as the Self-Healing Education Center. He is a certified member of the International Association of Counselors and Therapists. He received a doctorate in hygienic health sciences and classical naturopathy from the Life Science Institute of Texas. Extremely informed. He has written, researched, done thousands of videos and interviews. I'm sure folks are very familiar with his work and really appreciative for the opportunity to have him on the program to learn more from him. Joining us live, Dr. Phil Valentine. Dr. Valentine, are you with us, sir?
Yes, I am.
Outstanding. Thank you so much for sharing some time out of your busy schedule. I know you have a lot on your plate. We are really grateful for the opportunity to hear from you, sir.
Thank you for your kind invitation. We have been pretty busy now in our preparation for this Sunday and the following Sunday after that for the 10th. Just to make sure that with my seamless name, she thought it sounded as if the word UKS sounded like an F as in Frank, but it's U as in United, K as in King, S as in Science, now.org. And on the page, on the home page, there at the bottom right, we would ask the family to put their email addresses there, because the email address is what we are going to use to send them the link and invitation to that upcoming webinar. So they must register for the webinar, and they will be receiving, if I'm not mistaken, they will be receiving also a password that in order to be able to attend the webinar. So we're saying to the people as well that the webinar can only hold 100 participants, and these participants will be joining in from around the world. So we're asking everyone, if they are truly going to be participating, to register as soon as they can. Now, our people are last-minute people. We kind of just bum rush at the last minute to do things. But we ask people to be prepared to get started from today to begin to register for that program. Again, at uksnow.org, and there on the home page, the bottom right-hand corner is a place for you to put your email address so that we can send out in the next posting your link to your registry and invitation.
Outstanding. I will make sure to give out the address again as we go through the broadcast so that people will know where to get the information. And as he said, just put your email in at the bottom. I did that, and you'll get the update, get an email with all the information. Really simple. Right on. This broadcast, the context of white supremacy, I have unfortunately concluded that we are in a global system of racism, white supremacy. I use those two terms as synonyms, and I use the same definition for both terms. Definition I use is as follows: a global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white. Do you believe that such a system exists, and do you think that is an accurate definition?
I think it's a precise and accurate definition, as in the context of Dr. Neely Fuller, as he so eloquently placed it in his work, and as expounded by Dr. Francis Cress Welsing.
Okay. Before I hopped into what you're going to be doing with the webinar, we had a guest on live from Nigeria earlier in the day, Prince Justice. He's written about racism extensively. And one of the things he kept emphasizing was the damage that religion, specifically that racist man, racist woman, their different religious systems that they've brought in, the damage that they've done to black people. And I know you are familiar with that, and I've heard you talk about how believing in those different white, so-called European religious systems really sets us up to be taken advantage of in all sorts of different ways. Just could you share your thoughts on that really quick before we hop into what you're going to be doing next week?
By all means, I would be more than happy to. In fact, when I began my, for want of a better word, ministry into attacking all of the different bulwarks of racism in Western Hemisphere, the first one that I did attack in my young years on the path was religion. I was raised a Catholic, and I know it firsthand what these priests did in my land in Trinidad. And when I came here to the Americas and was put into Catholic schools, and then what I began to study of the history of religion, of the history of the Catholic religion, the history of white religion itself, and how it was used as one of the many ballistics and the weaponry used to undermine and to, as so far temporarily, conquer the dark peoples of the planet. What I did was, and the brother there in Nigeria knows definitely if he were to tune into some of my earlier tapes, was to break down the fallacy of the Bible as a historical piece in the context that they use it for their own gain, and to show it as a mystical piece, which is a mystery system embedded within the storylines where the names have been changed to protect the guilty. So what we have done personally in my work was to show what Western theology, or what I call theocracy, and what I call the disease of people who are caught up, especially our African peoples who are caught up in the religious system of white supremacy, I call the condition and symptom psychosis. And many of the people that are afflicted can be seen in the churches that are run by some of the psychiatric doctors who essentially patrol that particular asylum every Sunday from a pulpit. And the psychosis can be seen in the whipping up of frenzy. It was a tactic that our ancestors used to go into other realms, but that tactic was contained in such a way psychologically as to be able to whip up that same frenzy that we use to go in to automatically use our bodies rather than telephones or telescopes or any of these other types of external machinery to enhance the recessive senses of the whites. He uses his technology to enhance what he did not have the ability to do organically. So what we used to do when we went into trances, when we went into certain types of shifted or other forms of psychological places in our minds, when we would shift our attention, we would go in and communicate with other planets, communicate with other, the other side, and so forth. And this was an organic process. But now that has been contained inside of a church, which has turned that organic process of interfacing with other realities into a psychosis, because it's been contained within specific edifices, structures that were built by those who were there to, who built them to contain that type of spirituality, to warp it, to pervert it, and to turn it into the psychosis we see every Sunday with people falling out over this this entity, this demon they call Jesus.
Wow. Wow. I asked our guest earlier, I asked him if he thought, black people, if we could successfully correct our problems that we're facing as a result of what white people are doing to us while still holding on to Christianity. And he said, I don't think so. Do you think it's possible for us to correct ourselves while we're still holding on to white Christianity?
No, the Christianity is part of a triumvirate, a three-headed dog that I call the three-headed dog of Serapis. It's Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. This three-headed dog is attached to the same body of control, and most of the orders that come to that dog to tell it to heel, to sit, to roll over, comes from the Vatican. And those who are in that hierarchy that control all three of the heads of the dog essentially use the same theological history, or what I call twistery, where they twist the story to fit their own agenda. So if you look at so-called Christianity, you will see that it is a direct theft of the ancient Cushitic Dravidian or Cushitic Harappan theology that came up before the attack of the Aryans into that part, where they amalgamated, because they found now that the Brahmins of India are essentially the same blood type as the Ashkenazim Jew of the Caucasus Mountains. So the Brahmin culture of India that invaded and supplanted the true Buddhistic religion with what they did to warp the Vedas and so forth, are the same people who are essentially running the other theocratic or theopsychotic institutions in Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. So if you look at the Brahmin literature, you will see there is an entity called Brahma. And if you look at the way that was twisted, you will see that Brahma, when you change or juxtapose the A, you get Abraham or Braham. So Abraham, Brahma, and all of the fathers that they call, because remember, Islam, Judaism, and Christianity call Abraham or Brahma their father of their religion. So if you see the tie-ins of how this mosaic of theopsychotic entities that have created a necklace of psychological death to our people are all connected. They changed the Vedas so that people who are dark are considered the untouchables, who now call themselves the Dalits. And over here, they shifted and warped the tenets of their religion to talk about us as Ham being damned and being damned by our color. So it's the same thing all around. Like Dr. Neely Fuller said, it's a global institution, and there are certain people running it to suppress the true spiritual people of this planet.
Context of white supremacy, our guest, Dr. Phil Valentine. When I spoke with you earlier, I was eagerly looking forward to having you on the program. I said one of the things that leaped out at me when I saw Hidden Colors, your segment where you were explaining the Statue of Liberty and how that relates to the patron saint of manifest destiny. And I was really excited about getting more information about that for our listeners. Can you explain a bit of that?
Well, by all means. Manifest destiny, what you see, the figure of Columbia, that you see at the Columbia Pictures, well, that particular picture of Columbia Pictures is actually an offshoot of the original picture of Columbia during the time that was called, the time that became Manifest Destiny. This happened in the mid-19th century, during the time when the United States began its expansion from the east to the west. In other words, killing off all of the Native Americans that they could, massacring everyone in this premise that they were somehow deemed to have been given this task to bring democracy and light and love to the world. But first they had to wipe out everybody human or any buffalo on there. And in fact, a picture was actually painted that depicted what it looked like, what Manifest Destiny looked like. And the artist's name was John Gast, G-A-S-T. And he interpreted what the principle of Manifest Destiny was about. The principle of Manifest Destiny was actually articulated first by a man named John O'Sullivan. John O'Sullivan was the editor at that time of a very, very influential United States, he was like the editor-in-chief of these magazine or papers that they were sending out at that time, called the United States Magazine and Democratic Review. And they were very much into the expansionist doctrine of, you're conquering for the better of the planet. And he gave that name Manifest Destiny in about 1845, and he said something to the effect that the fulfillment of our manifest destiny to overspread the continent allotted by Providence for the free development of our yearly multiplying millions. So what he put those words in to structure the wordings of what became known as Manifest Destiny, John Gast just then took that particular phrase and painted a picture of a woman, a white woman with blonde, long tresses, floating above a scene. And the scene below in front of her a very dark plain. And in that very dark part of the picture are Native American peoples, buffalo, wild horses, trees, plants, everything organic. And behind her is a picture of trains belching smoke and houses and wagons and all types of brightness being shown in the background, and towns with white people with farms being put up. And if you look, you'll see around her arm there is a wreath, the Roman wreath that they put on the head of Caesar. And in her hand, in her left hand, is a book. Now, the bright light that you see in the Columbia pictures with her holding a torch, that bright light is supposed to signify the bright light that Western civilization brought to the plains of America and dispel the darkness, not only the darkness of ignorance and the darkness of non-civilization, but the darkness of people with the darkness of skin color. And that now they show her floating above this scene with the book in her hand. But the brightness in Hollywood that was behind her was transferred to the torch that you see her carrying in her hand in the front of the movies. Now, hearken back to New York and New York Harbor, and you will see that the original Statue of Liberty, of course, was supposed to have been bequeathed by France or the French Masons to Washington's Black Masons in order to get them to celebrate, their freedom when it happened after 1865, supposedly. And they supposed to have had a black face in there representing freedom. She's supposed to have had chains around her ankles, chains around her hands, and she was supposed to be holding not a torch, but a scepter. Well, of course, the white Masons said no, and those who were promoting Manifest Destiny essentially kept the same look with the book in her hand and the torch that she was carrying. So the Statue of Liberty, the picture by John Gast, G-A-S-T, in his interpretation, and Columbia, which is the personification of the United States, which became the angel, which became the saint, the patron saint of Manifest Destiny, is shown in the front of Columbia Pictures with this woman holding a torch, looking just like or somewhat similar to the picture that John Gast painted of that woman floating above that scene of annihilation.
Wow. Wow. Do you, just so our listeners are clear, do you think this resonates with white people when they see this? Particularly, I would point out a classic example on the cover of Planet of the Apes, where you see the Statue of Liberty, in ruin. It's broken in the water, and Charlton Heston is crying. Oh my gosh, the whole world has just fallen apart. That iconic photo. Do you think white people, they connect the dots, that they understand what that is, what's being communicated with that symbol?
Well, it's automatic. When you saw the apes, you know they meant black people. But even in that particular sense, in the Planet of the Apes, the old one with Charlton Heston, the white apes with the blonde hair ruled, and the black apes were the soldiers. So essentially what they were telling you is that the quote-unquote niggers took over the planet. So their deathly fear was that Manifest Destiny came to an end, and savagery returned to the land. That's the symbolism. Okay? So what they're saying essentially is that the Manifest Destiny was the best thing that happened to the planet, because whites, of course, were actually deemed by God to actually raise the planet to the level it did now, not realizing that what we were watching was a sophisticated savage, one who essentially came back and dovetailed off of the conquered societies he stole all of his information from, took his knowledge of what the society showed him, and weaponized knowledge. See, this is the difference between us. what happened was when we ended up extending ourselves to teach the Caucasian, when he came into Africa, to Timbuktu, to Abu Simbel, to these places to learn, he took what he learned, which was based on the deepest of wisdom and knowledge, and he weaponized it. There's a difference here. There are certain things that once you are given information on the high degrees, you're not supposed to just turn it against humanity. It's supposed to be turned for humanity. But not with people who we're dealing with, essentially, who were taking all of the best think tanks and all of the high sciences of the planet to concentrate it in ways to control the planet. And what we had was that there's but so much control you can impose upon the planet and upon people themselves, because the amount of energy it takes to go contrary to nature and contrary to the impetus of consciousness, which is consciousness is always evolving to other states of intelligence. If you keep suppressing that, it's going to tell in the planet as well as in your own efforts, because you will be constantly stymied, you'll be constantly sidetracked, and you'll have to be constantly mending and patching until there is no more chance for you to patch or mend anything that you're doing. Everything comes apart. You cannot stop the human spirit. So their manifest destiny, which essentially to me was a race, and people could look up the word race and see what a race is. It was a race that temporarily put a blight upon this continent, wiping out certain peoples, and now it has run its course. There is a whole other entity or energy that is about to come in and take over now, and he sees that there's another reality coming up, and it's going to do like a tide. I told people that it's going to be like the tides. The tides come up, and sometimes you could stand on the beach and there's hardly any beach, but then there are times of the day when you can come to that same beach and the water line is way out. Well, that's what's happening at this time. That flood, that high tide that we got, that temporary high tide, was Western civilization. Right now, the tide is going out, and all of the debris that tide brought in, that was now being taken out, that is what is left of Western civilization. We are beginning to see it begin to be swept clean. There is a change.
Wow. Context of white supremacy. Again, our guest, Dr. Phil Valentine, the workshop webinar next weekend, next Sunday, September 4th. Get more information, the website, U as in United, K as in kinetic, S, start, now. So it's UKSnow.org. I believe my co-host, Justice, I believe she's also with us. Justice, if you have some questions you would like to ask Dr. Valentine, your line should be open. Please feel free.
Greetings, Dr. Valentine.
Greetings, Mr. Justice.
What is a I was just wondering, what is a hygienic scientist?
The hygienic sciences are based upon ancient scientific procedures in healing, where we use no poison. The hygienic system was resuscitated back in the late 1800s by certain men who began to reinstitute the intelligence in healing once more. What happened was the Civil War, they began to investigate what happened to all the people who had died in the Civil War after being wounded, and they found out that just as many people who were wounded and cared for by doctors were killed as were killed outright on the battlefield, because of the types of medicine that they were using in order to try to heal the wounded. And in the investigation of how Western medicine was being conducted at that time, they began to go back and look at the way that they were approaching medicine and came up with this system called hygiene, which is named after the Greek goddess Hygeia, who was the goddess of health and wellness. And of course, when we talk about the Greek civilization, we're talking about the African civilization, ancient Kemet, which essentially was the foundational premise for Greek civilization in the first place. Going back into studying anything having to do with it, you'll see that all of Greek civilization essentially took everything they did from Kemet, and the prophet, master, teacher, Imhotep became the patron saint Asclepius in Greek medicine. So we take the Hygeia or hygienic sciences and we have now Africanized them again, and we teach it in a form called classical naturopathy, which we offer as a course here at our University of Commission Sciences. Hygienic science, let me just be clear, is using no poison. In other words, I, being a herbologist or herbalist, I studied herbalism to find out that the secret to herbalism is the use and, to us, abuse of certain toxins in plants. There are two types of herbs. There are nutritive herbs and there are medicinal herbs. The use of medicinal herbs is to mediate or to medicate or to attenuate symptoms. You cannot feed dis-ease, which is based in lack, with a toxin. So we do not practice what we call poisonopathy. Poisonopathy is using poisons from plants to mitigate certain symptoms and to allow the body, of course, to heal in certain ways, but it creates a deficit that later on becomes something else that the body is going to need to have to address. So we deal not just with herbs, and if we do deal with herbs, it's because someone has been using pharmaceutical drugs for a number of years, and to try to get them off of the pharmaceutical drugs immediately so that we could put them on whole nutritional foods would be somewhat, irresponsible and dangerous. So what we do is, with my knowledge of herbs, I may tell a person to use herbs as a segue and a way to deal with transiting from using pharmaceutical drugs at their own choice, of course, and getting back onto nutrition. So hygienic system is the purest system for dealing with natural healing because we use no forms of poisons as our first line of therapeutic advice. We deal specifically with the removal of conditions. And once we teach people about the conditions, about how the body's intelligence, the intelligence in the cell, that is, works, then the person becomes a self-healer, which they were in the beginning anyway.
How does being an author help to replace white supremacy with justice?
How does being an author, I'm sorry, say that again?
How does being an author help to replace white supremacy with justice?
How does being an author help to replace white supremacy with justice? Well, an author gives you the latitude to be able to put down in words that begin to interface with people's minds. The good part about reading a book is that you're actually reading the mind of another human being. And if that mind is profound in its ability to transfer information through those words, then you've reached another mind firsthand. Words come right directly to your understanding. They're not as succinct as the way pictures work on the subconscious level, but since we're operating on the conscious level, words are used for people to articulate consciously so that they could perceive subconsciously. So yes, writing the book has allowed me to put into words all the things that my brothers and sisters need to know and to get to their subconscious firsthand immediately so that I could transfer that information to them. And remember, when you're reading a book, you're participating. It's a two-way kind of activity. It's mutual between the words of the author and the person who's reading. But when you're looking at TV or you're looking at a movie or anything like that, you go into what is known as a alpha state, and that alpha state puts you into your conscious mind just completely goes flat. And what you have going into your mind could be anything. There's nothing there. There's no screen. There's no filter. There's nothing there, and all that information, all the information that's in the pictures and all the sub-information that's behind the pictures are going directly into your mind and into your subconscious without your filter. But when you read, you're participating with the words. You're participating with the ideas that the words are conveying. The words are painting pictures, and your consciousness are orienting the colors of those pictures, the way those pictures look. Are you now taking that information and doing it for yourself? Whereas with television and those other mediums, you're not allowed to.
Why do you want to discuss your top-selling publication, The Wounded Womb?
Why? Because I would like to reach out to many of my sisters to let them know what has happened to them, just as much as I've been letting my brothers know through the other tapes, because I believe, and I know for a fact, I'm beyond believing, that our sisters carry within their womb, within the cells, within their mitochondria, they carry the library of all of our experiences going way back to the beginning. So it is within her womb that we regenerate the race, that we regenerate the species, that the species lives or dies on the health of the womb. Of course, the health of the man and his sperm also is very important. But the womb, as I say in my book, is the tabernacle. It is the altar upon which life becomes, substantial. It comes from its essence to its solid form in the womb. And it is in the mind of the woman that helps to shape the mind of the child from the time the child is forming in the womb. So when they attacked her. They attacked us, of course, back during the feminist days. And when they attacked us, the men, they undermined us through what they made our women believe about us. They created an incredible schism between us, the black man and the black woman, by creating a massive distrust in men, in their men. So black women began to distrust their men because the white women began because of the money they had, they began to promote all of what was bad about men. They began to undermine the fundamental principles of family, of the man and the woman in the house, of the man as the first authority and the woman as the secondary authority. And we lost that bonding that keeps a civilization and a family together. They elevated the woman, if they wanted to call it that. I think that they degenerated her, but they took her out of her throne, dethroned her from the place in society and family, and threw her into the male sector of society and told her she was equal and could do anything a man could do and even better than a man. Now, with that lie and that illusion leading her for the last 45 years, it has helped to undermine the male principle, because once you elevate a woman and give her the job of a man, you de-escalate and de-elevate a man and superficialize him to the point where he becomes redundant and no longer necessary. which then dovetails into why we have 2.5 million men in jail today.
What does the title Hidden Colors mean to you?
Well, it could mean that it was suppressed, that the knowledge of our people's achievements in the world, it was turned into a very gray and very dark and very obscured reality, and that we as peoples of color, all different spectrums of us, were completely removed and effaced. All evidence of our achievements and what we did to start civilizations were first destroyed and then hidden from the rest of the world. So yes, the colors could be the spectrum of achievements that we've created and that we gave to the world. The colors could also mean who we were in our history and who did things behind the scenes that white industry now uses and makes billions of dollars off of, and none of the people, none of the colors that created the inventions and so forth that we are using here in our commonplace reality. No, most people don't know that black peoples of color were the creators of these. All we know is that GE and ITT and these other conglomerates who used our inventions and all the things we did are no longer something that are prominent. That in school, in order to maintain manifest destiny and white supremacy, they do not teach this, though they benefit from African genius every day. And so, yes, hidden colors could mean a spectrum of things. But we do know that the colors essentially mean that usually you run up the colors when the colors are flags. The colors could be the people themselves. The colors could be the achievements, all of these. So hidden, yes. Colors could mean a variety of things.
What are some of the main things non-white people should look out for in the film Hidden Colors?
What are some of the things that non-white people should look out for?
Yeah, in the film Hidden Colors.
In the film Hidden Colors? Well, I tell you, it's so chock full of information. They should look out for little things that they didn't know and look at the outside world and see how the outside world is run and see what's written in the history books that they give you in the European schools. Look for everything that and study everything that Hidden Colors had to say and more. But then when you go to school, challenge the teacher. Challenge those who would tell you differently when you have found out something that was hidden, like in Hidden Colors. You go and you challenge the authority that's trying to tell you what to do. You disrupt the class respectfully with your knowledge, and you let them know, no, that did not happen, but make sure that you have all your dates. Make sure you have the information for them to refer back to, because they'll just tell you, no, that's not it. Where do you get your source from? And then when you tell them the source was from Hidden Colors, but Hidden Colors got it from A, B, C, D, and that those pieces of information curve back into stuff that was hidden by whites, that were written by whites, then they have nothing to say.
Thank you very much. I don't believe I have any more questions at this time. Go ahead, Gus.
Mm-hmm.
Context of white supremacy. Again, our guest, Dr. Phil Valentine. The workshop next week, you'll be going into more detail. You just touched on it. Your book, The Wounded Womb. And I just had a listener. He was doing some research on how the so-called feminist mindset has been a detriment to black people. And he was trying to get more information about that. Can you go into a little bit more detail about what you'll be discussing next week?
Yes, I'll be discussing in lieu of many other topics connected to the wounded womb. I'll be discussing feminism's role in diverting the intelligentsia of the black civil rights movement into this place where the so-called independence of black women was somehow the next stage of their civil rights. In other words, black people had achieved civil rights, and even, what's her name, Steinem gave a clue when she said, after black rights, now female rights. So what she was intimating at that point was that after the civil rights movement, we were now going after the black woman. When they did that and enjoined themselves, now remember, the feminist movement was an exclusionary movement. They excluded men. And if they weren't excluding men, the men they brought in were essentially people that supported that undermining policy that feminism were dealing with. And that then gave rise to them enjoining themselves with the homosexual movement and every other movement that began to adhere themselves to the so-called civil rights totem. And what they did was begin to attach themselves to civil rights and use that to dovetail their own individual, quote-unquote, aspects and interpretations of civil rights. So they went after the black woman, and they got her. They got Coretta Scott King. She became feminized. They got our sister Malcolm's wife. She became part of the Boule. And they went after them, and of course, our sisters were doing it in a way hoping to raise their status in society by enjoining and becoming part of the status quo when they began to not realize that it was there, what they were pushing in their policies that were promoted like by people like Steinem and black feminists like Audre Lorde and Angela Davis and all the rest of them that came out from that ilk. They began to promote independence in women, which was the same slave context, the same slave blueprint that they used. Turned the tables, flipped the polarities. Men by nature were independent, women were dependent. That dependency didn't mean they were weak. It meant that they had a specific dependency. We depended on one another, but we solved our compatibility in different ways. The masculine principle, being independent, gave him the ability to solve problems quickly for the woman. So he could go out, hunt, find the right place for her to be, to raise the child, to do all these things. Independence is what drives the masculine principle. When you subvert that and you make him dependent through the mother, by teaching the mother that you raise your child in a certain manner, or else he will be killed like his father, which is what you see today. 75% of the black household is now raised by its women. You see now that you shift that equation, making the man dependent and the woman independent, which is against her nature. It looks good in the beginning when you have a society supporting your, quote, independence, but then there is something intrinsic to the psychology and the inner makeup of a woman that is not about being just independent. She may want that for the moment, but then she may then begin to see her own psychic instinctive needs begin to pull her back into that dependency mode. Now that she's independent and got all that she wants and all that she's ever gotten before, now her dependency is becoming this emotional situation, and she's filling up the doctors and psychologists and psychiatrists' offices now because she's dependent on that thing, that intangible thing that she cannot get in her social independence. And that was the trick. That's what pulled her out of the home. That's what made her become contentious and combative with the masculine principle rather than compatible. So the feminist movement, which was created by Rockefeller, funded by Rockefeller, and given the kind of monies to be able to promote its agenda, is what then undermined what the civil rights movement was supposed to have done for people, black people, collective as a family. It separated us. It drove a wedge between us. And now we have this madness, this sickness, this collateral damage that we want to call black society today. And now we wonder why.
Do you have, I'm sure you know, a lot of people, I suspect, a lot of black people, males and females, would be resistant to the view that you just shared with us. You obviously, you said during the Q&A next week, people who don't agree, they'll have an opportunity to call in, ask questions, what have you. You said you're able to decontaminate. It seems like you have figured out a way that you can correct folks who, I guess, have been contaminated by this feminist mindset. Have you had success in revealing your information and getting people to kind of change their view about so-called feminism?
Well, feminism now has become an insidious mindset that most people don't even know they've been infected. They don't even understand that the adoption of certain language and the behavior that goes concurrent with that language, the acting out and the participation in certain things that are based in and were created by feminism, supports that. It gives it a matter-of-fact reality. Let me say that again. It becomes matter-of-fact, which means, oh, that's normal. That's something I recognize as part of my reality. There are young people today that are raised in the reality that feminism created. They're living now as if this is the way their ancestors lived. They know nothing else. They do not understand or understand that the war, the ongoing war of white supremacy, is to use every tactic, every weapon it has at its command, even if that weapon be a woman, even that weapon being a man. Whatever weapon they use, they're going to use it, and the best weapon they could ever use is psychological weapons. And one of the best ways to undermine a population, as they said in the so-called Willie Lynch letter, is to turn the black woman against the black man and the black man against the black woman. How much easier is that? How much harder is that to understand? All the tactics that dovetail from just that particular line alone should make us wary about anything that white people are promoting, period. So if Gloria Steinem, who has been outed by her own, which is essentially a group called the Red Stockings, which was a fanatical feminist movement who found out that she was a CIA agent. When you find out that a CIA agent was responsible for the feminist movement, and she was the one that promoted it, she became the spokesperson, the icon for feminism. What does that tell you? It tells you that the CIA, who is actually created to undermine and destroy governments, had a CIA agent working in the head structures of the feminist movement that essentially changed the mindset of all women. So let's take that into consideration. If the CIA undermines governments around the world, what was the CIA agent doing at the head of the feminist movement, and why are black women now adopting feminist ideologies? If the case is that they undermine governments, well, the first thing you must think is that they undermine the government of the family. They undermine the government of our black society. They undermine the government of the minds of each of your women. Understand that the weapons of war change. They become more and more sophisticated. Therefore, the kind of analysis must become ever more sophisticated. And this is what this is about, what the Wounded Womb is about. It is a sophisticated analysis of the weaponry, the weaponization of emotions, and the weaponization of an ideology that was used to undermine our society.
Context of white supremacy, Dr. Phil Valentine. If you have questions on the TalkShoe line, it's *8. If you want to dial in, the number 760-569-7676 and the code 564-943#. I'll give it out one more time. The number 760-569-7676 and the code is 564-943. I just wanted to get some details. You'll be covering this next week during the webinar. What are some of the ways that so-called feminist thinking has changed the environment in which we live?
Well, we can look around and see that more women are depressed in this society than ever, and Europe, under feminism. Depression became the #1 disease in Western society. Why do you think that happened? We see that women, as far as our children are concerned, the entire education system was undermined, where it was changed from a liberal arts, more masculine-oriented reality to a feminized reality with something called outcome-based education that normalized idiocy and undermined the ability to think, which was a dovetail from the Prussian system that was instituted back in the late 1800s. So what we are looking at in all sectors of society was the feminization of the colleges, where you had women's studies going in, and most of the time I had one woman came out from one of the women's studies classes and told me that part of the lessons when she first walked in to the room, there was a woman sitting there, or actually sitting back there on the desk with no bottom on, and she was sitting there with her legs agape and her vagina open, and everybody had to walk by to look at this, to say that this was the power, and we're going to come to know ourselves and all of this nonsense. And in there, they began to find out more and more. She studied more about women's studies. The women's studies actually was about undermining the wife and the family. They really came down on wives. In other words, mothers, homemakers who stayed at home to teach their children. In these women's studies, they attacked that, calling them pretty much imbeciles, slaves, the victims of a patriarchal system and the whole 9 yards. So when you attack an institution and then pull and withdraw all the monies that would support such an institution, and then force a woman to have to make a choice so that she goes out to look for a job during the times when she is at her most fertile as a woman, that is from the age of 18 all the way through 25, have her pounding the sidewalk looking for a job, for a career, not wanting to deal with motherhood. I keep telling these sisters, your eggs don't get any fresher year by year. And now women who have done all they have came out and they're barren. They develop all kinds of diseases from the eating, from the hanging out in the nightclubs, from the promiscuous sex constantly, screwing one man to the other, following these sluts in the city. I forgot the name of this thing called Sluts in the City, I call it. The Sex in the City or Sluts in the City to me, sis. And thinking that they can go around and that their whole life lives around shoes and the next penis that they're going to test. This is the kind of life that feminism gave to the rest of society. Now, we may have made it a little more sophisticated. We may have couched it in all these different women's studies and women's programs, and okay, let's go to this workshop. There's 1,000 workshops now that women ain't got nothing to do in the home. She doesn't know how to sew. She don't know how to cook. She don't know how to do a damn thing anymore. She is just a functionary that she goes to a job, and she has a specific talent to do something outside of the home, but when you ask her to make a home, she can't. Well, that's exactly what the plan was. Okay? You hand your children off to somebody who takes care of your child, who molds your child at the time when they are most sensitive and most open to influences. The state takes them and gives more employment to women or strangers to raise your child. This is what they did to this society. Okay? And it goes on and on. You could just follow the dominoes as they hit another domino and it drops. You get another domino, it drops. You have no way of telling the kind of carnage, of actually seeing the kind of carnage that has been vented upon this society until you have looked at what feminism has done.
Wow. You wouldn't say, for the folks who would say, well, hey, wait a minute, Dr. Valentine, females have been mistreated, so-called sexism, that's a big problem. Clearly, there's a lot of evidence that males have mistreated females and not done the correct thing by them. The so-called feminist movement, that did a lot to correct mistreatment of females. What would your response to that be?
Well, I would look at the fact that the statistics of men who brutalize women are in the low 1 and 2%. If you look at the overall statistics, men are not that way. That was what was portrayed by feminists. Okay? They promoted the statistics through the media. Remember, they own the media. Rockefeller does. So when you're pushing as anything, and the word sexism, these are all of what we're going to be talking about in the Wounded Womb. You're dealing with sexism. The word sexism, the whole meaning of sexism, well, guess what sexism is? Sexism is a mind that is heterosexual. In other words, sexism is heterosexuality. So yes, I am a sexist because I am a heterosexual. Sexists know their place. As a man, I know my place. I don't want my woman's position, and I don't want her taking mine. I do not want a woman doing my job or my brother's job who he needs in order to take and raise his family. Yes, I am a sexist because I believe that the jobs that the society gives to us as men and women are divided, and that's how the balance is kept. If I have a woman that's fighting with me in the workplace, and this is why women can't understand what's happening, this very thing that feminism has done has stunted the growth of men and has caused men to remain in an adolescent state. And you can look at all these movies that you see out here with, what is this thing when they, I forgot the names of these movies where you see this guy sitting around with a beer, crushing it against his head, scratching his scrotum and talking about party, party. And this guy's like 25, 30 years of age. Feminism has completely taken away the impetus of responsibility from the male, which is supposed to be what he does. Women can't find men is because they went out and did the jobs that were supposed to mold men. They can't find men because men now say, okay, since you can take care of yourself, why do I need to be taking care of you? Why do I need to be paying your way? Why do I need to be paying your rent? You're independent. You do what you want to do. So I don't have that responsibility, so what do? You're out there now, 25, you're successful, and you're looking for a man, you're looking for companionship. He does not have a commitment for you because the very nature of a man is to want to care for you. He don't want to care for you because there's no need. Nothing drives his instinct to want to take care of you. So he does not see you as that. So what do? Your independence has now stopped him from developing into a man. You have undermined his development to take responsibility for you, which is part of his job. So you have there is an arrested development in the males today because women are doing the job that men are supposed to cut their teeth on manhood about. So when you have a woman doing a man's job and he don't need to take care of you, all you are is a piece of sex for him. And all you're doing is throwing yourself around there hoping that Mr. Right will take you up and adopt and accept that you're going to be the boss. There's no two bosses in a house. You can't have two bosses. You can have two people working together. But the man, and this is what I know, and I believe, if you want to do with it being a religious thing, Well, I know that the man is supposed to be the head of the household, and I don't give a damn who says what about that. Because if you mess with that equation, you can't have two leaders or two heads of a household. Then what you have is nothing more than a roommate. Okay? I don't want a roommate. I want a wife. I will talk to her because she has the wisdom to know what we need as a collective. That is her job, to know what we need as a collective, to know what must be done as a collective. But when those finances come, if you choose a man and you have a good man that's smart and you see that man is smart, how is it that when you come together with him, all of a sudden, after you make that commitment, he no longer has what you see in him and you think you need to do everything? This is the mentality as far as black males are concerned. We are not allowed to fail anymore. You have two strikes when you get into anything, into the workplace and into relationships today. Because women are independent, you cannot fail at anything as a black male, because then she can move on to the next, because she's taking care of herself. But in the end, she begins to break down psychologically because she is operating in a field. She is in a field of operation that is not her, period. So if you have a good man and a good woman together, they work together. But if he is intelligent and you trust him, then trust him to make the decision, the final decision. Because if the two of y'all can't agree on anything, what happens? And if he is wise, he will know, he will listen and hear wise counsel from you and act accordingly and make the decisions based on your wise counsel. But women can undermine and destroy men, or they can build them up. And over the last 45 years, they have been busy breaking men down and undermining them, ridiculing them. Now they wonder where they go and where they are. Men are just sick and tired. They don't want to be bothered anymore. Now you just created them to create and act like little boys. So I'm telling you what the problem is, because I have studied it. The solution, we'll talk about it at the webinar.
That would be Sunday, September 4th, 7 p.m. Eastern. You can get more information. Visit the website, uksnow.org. I'll give that out one more time, uksnow.org. I just want to be very clear. In your opinion, it's obvious, undeniable, the so-called feminist movement, this was strategically engineered to bring about this result. Everything that you've outlined, the depression, males in a state of adolescence, conflict between males and females, all of this was strategically planned with the so-called feminist movement, in your opinion?
Yes, I see it. Now, you know that women do not change societies. And I'm sorry to say that. I don't care what it is that is, touted by female or women who are intellectuals. Women do not change societies. They change within societies. Understand the difference. They change within societies. But women do not change societies at the fundamental level. Men do. Now notice that we have not yet changed the conditions of black people ever since Oprah became a billionaire. Check the science, family. Women do not change societies. They change to adapt and adopt to the society. So the one who made Oprah, those who gave Oprah the monies to become Oprah, to become an icon for the women that they needed to control, the black women, because they no longer had Coretta Scott, they no longer had Malcolm's. They needed a white caricature mammy. That's why everybody liked the fat, plump Oprah, because she was an icon caricature of Mammy Beulah. She was the perfect icon because she could cross borders. Whites will accept her because the feminists demanded that she be accepted, just like the feminists demanded that Steven Spielberg, they went to Steven Spielberg and demanded for him to make The Color Purple. This is what we're talking about. Women do not change societies, men do. When you suppress or destroy the men of a society, you now have the women take it over to run it the way you want them to. If you don't understand that equation, then we will never change our condition as African peoples here. You saw the society barely beginning to change when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad came up. That was a man. You saw the society begin to change when you heard Malcolm. That was a man. You saw the society change when you saw Marcus. That was a man. You saw the society begin to shift with Martin. That was a man. Nowhere did you see the leadership come up from a woman. She leads under. She leads behind. She does not lead out front. We do not have a frontline leader anymore. Don't even try to even think about Barack Obama. So do not think that our African condition is not connected to the gender equation that undermines us at the fundamental level of our thinking and our instincts, because that's where they got us. You do not have any weapons, and the people who are supposed to be working on figuring out what's going on, the scientists of our black community, are not dealing with the metaphysics of our oppression. They're dealing with the physics, the economics, the police brutality, and all of that. These are symptoms. We have to get to the fundamental level where they have us, and that is when they get our children to propagate this madness. We have to get to the fundamental levels of where they control our woman and get her back. Snap her out of this feminist illusion. Snap her out of this this coma that feminism has put her in. These blinders that they've put on her. We have to rescue her as men. And ain't no men out there that's ready to die for a cause anymore, because a man dies for his cause. A man is what he does, not just what he talks about. That's why I helped to bring out the University of Commission Sciences. That's why I established all the things that I did establish. You do as men. Don't just talk. Rhetoric, that's for women. Women like to talk. Men do. And a man is what he does.
Context of white supremacy. Do you see a connection between the so-called feminist movement and the the so-called gay rights movement? Do you see a connection or any sort of relationship between those two?
Oh yeah, the feminist movement involved. In fact, they recruited the gay rights movement as the agitating arm of the feminist movement. They needed them to be the adjutants for their cause. So the feminists they embrace the gays, although they don't like them. They embrace them, and essentially they are now. More and more of them they invited in. And in fact, it was during the 70s that the feminists came out finally, after they recruited, that the feminists finally came out and said that the underlying principle of feminism is based in lesbianism. That's written down. You go to my book. In fact, if people who wish to get my book, they can go to lulu.com, LULU.com, and in the search box, just put wounded, WOUNDED, womb, WOMB, and it'll put you right onto the purchase page. I have two sides. There's two parts to my Wounded Womb. There's part one, which is the anatomy and metaphysics of women's diseases, and part two, which is the politics and economics of women's diseases. And in the part two is where I discuss how feminism and other forms of isms attacked and undermined the black woman in this society.
Can we get the address at Lulu one more time? Is it lulu.com?
That's correct. Lulu, LULU.com. And then when you go up into the search box, put Wounded Womb. And that will put you directly onto the purchase page.
Okay.
And for those of you who've never seen it or know it, the book is a 700-page manual. It was 1,000. I had to remove a couple of hundred pages because I didn't think anybody would be buying a 1,000-page book, and it was too expensive to print. And if anybody wants to know whether or not what I'm saying has any validity or can be corroborated. Is there any kind of evidence? I have over 125 in the back of my book. I have 125 book and article references that they can go to see that I'm not just talking off the top of my head.
Wow. And the webinar next week, Sunday, September 4th, we'll be touching on the so-called gay rights aspect as well during the webinar next week.
Yes, I will. I will be speaking about what this whole thing is, not just politically, but again, most people have not analyzed the feminist movement, micro-analyzed the feminine principle, not feminist, but feminine principle. I have micro-analyzed the masculine feminine principle, and I have micro-analyzed the homosexual principle, and I am writing a book on that, which God knows when I'm going to finish it because I have so many other books that I've started and not finished. I did finish The Wounded Womb, which is book 4 of the series. But I did a book. I'm writing a book called The Epicene Enigma. That is the Epicene Enigma. Epicene, just look that word up, Epicene. And the Epicene Enigma covers the origins and how homosexuality would come about, how to look for the signs for it and why it has come about and why it is so prevalent today. We will be going into that. And the common acceptance. I don't care what you want to be. If you are homosexual, then I don't hate you. But when legislation and monies are being spent to get my children into that frame of mind so that they could experiment with it, because this is what they're doing in the schools now, they are allowing for homosexuals to come in to teach the principle of homosexuality, believe it or not. This is what's happening today. And they're speaking, they're changing the curricula to accept homosexuality as normal. Okay, so I don't want my child, who is very impressionable, to be thinking that a deviation in chromosomes that changes someone to begin to become narcissistic, psychologically and psychopathically narcissistic, to be anyone teaching me that particular principle. I will learn about it, or I will teach my own child about it as a heterosexual. But heterosexuality now, they talk about homophobia, that is heterophobia. And they have this thing where homophobics or homosexuals are now coming at or coming after heterosexuals, and the different premises of heterosexuality, which were the standards of a society, are now criminalized for how we think or feel or behave towards homosexuals or homosexual behavior. We knew it by our own instincts that even the animals, horses, cows, and bulls, these animals, whenever a male horse wanted to mount another male horse, then all the horses isolated that horse because none of the females would allow that particular horse to mount her. So even the horses know that if the male horse that tried to mount another male horse contiguously was what he was and was not going to be what they considered good stock to mate with, how is it that we now, in our complacency, would believe that we could teach our children that this is something that we should normalize within our society? Now, I don't care what anybody thinks about PC or it's criminal to think this and all that. I don't want anybody normalizing some form of congenital perversion in the womb and telling me that the behavior should be something that is adopted by my children. I'm not having it. Just like they're not having me, I'm not having them.
We had a white man on the program who said he was actually criticizing Dr. Frances Cress Welsing's work, and he referenced her work as pseudoscientific bullshit. And the portion that he referenced specifically, he was saying that it is crazy to say that, there's some sort of agenda to increase so-called homosexual activity among black people, and further, there's nothing incorrect about that behavior in the first place. There's a lot of evidence that there's so-called homosexual activity in various species in the animal kingdom, and there's nothing incorrect about it. He was, very clear about that. Nothing is deviant about. I'm sorry?
Yeah, I know that there are all these apologists for that type of behavior, and usually if there are homosexual activities in a species, then they need to look at the environment that that species is living in that may have conditioned that particular behavior. For instance, English research has shown that based upon the toxins and pollutants that have been put into the water system, that different animals, especially male animals, are born with stunted penises, with no testicles, do not feel like they want to mate at all. So anytime you see a society begin to normalize a behavior that does not have anything to do with the protocol that nature creates, that is to be fruitful and multiply, whenever a society now condones and says there's nothing wrong with behavior that stunts the perpetuation of a species, then you know that society is coming to an end, and that man is in himself either homosexual to begin with, or essentially has become as passive to that particular reality because he has lost his masculine instinct.
Can we get the information again? I just want to make sure folks have it. The webinar next week, September 4th, how folks can register, and anything else you want to share just to make sure we've covered that for next week.
Okay. Just go to UKSNOW.org. That's U as in United, K as in King, S as in Science, NOW as in now.org. When you go up there, on the right side, down at the bottom, there is a little space for you to put your email. When you put your email in there, I will send, and my wife, Dr. Nalani, will send a link to you from the university. And it will come in the form of an office@cometaphysics.org. It will say office@cometaphysics.org, and it may say in the subject box that link to the webinar or webinar link, something to that effect. But there'll be a link there. They can go up on Facebook. If they're on Facebook, they can go into just go to Philip Valentine EL, and you'll see my picture there. Just go in there, and in some of my posts there, you will see a link that could take you, if you're on Facebook, to go directly to a page that has a link on that page that puts you into the place for registration. Yeah, but UKS, of course, is the simplest way to get that post to you. We'll be posting it regularly throughout the week. So we just ask that you put your email address and tell some friends, because we're going to be going in on this, like the young people say. I've been doing this for 35 years, and for 35 years I have grown. I've made my mistakes. I've made my mistakes, and I have admitted them. When I didn't say something correct or I was wrong, I came out and I said, well, no, this is what it was, because that's what I believe, integrity. And when you're trying to teach the people that, you're human, but you're trying to do the best to bring the best to them. And I always tell everybody to double check my research, do the research for yourself. And I know all the teachers, they tell you the same thing. And I've always said that if a teacher is not teaching you to be greater than his or herself, then that teacher is a pimp, and that teacher is one there who is creating a cult that wants you to follow him or her. All right? That teacher is supposed to teach the next generation to be greater than the previous one. And if they're teaching you just little pieces of information to make sure that you stay and become worship them as an icon or an idol, then that person is there feeding off of you like a vampire. Okay, I've never had any of my students, I don't want nobody following me at all. I want to walk beside them, and we're going to do this thing together. That's why I have a lot of people who come from my university, and I'm trying to duplicate myself. I'm not trying to get you to follow me, but I'm trying to duplicate myself. And all teachers, good teachers, are supposed to be doing just that. So we're prayerful that you would pass the word to people that you feel would benefit from this kind of information, especially those who are in school, young people who are in college, who are dealing with sociology courses, young women who are taking so-called women's studies. They need to know that this is the propagation of a specific tactic, a tactical undermining of our society by putting it into the schools so that our sisters will propagate that learning, and thereby, when they become pregnant, propagate it through the cells that they've created based upon that learning. And they'll pass it on in the generation, just like they told us how to create a slave. What you do is you put the man in front of the woman who's pregnant, and you kill him in the most heinous way. And she sees that and remembers that, and that's passed on in her genes, in her memory. It's a photograph that's passed on to those children. Well, you know that when you got our black women in these white institutions teaching them white feminism, you know what they're doing to deal with the mind, to cultivate the mind so that that passes on in her seed. That's exactly what we want the sisters and the brothers, the young sisters and the brothers, to definitely take stock of, to analyze, and to understand and overstand that this is a tactical war for the mind, and that the way that you wage war today to control people has changed, has become 10 times more sophisticated. Therefore, we must become 100 times more sophisticated in our analysis.
Once again, Dr. Phil Valentine, the website U.K.S.Now.org. They also, on September 10th at 6 p.m. Eastern, the University of Commission Sciences is holding a metaphysical meet and greet open house. You can register, go to the website UKSNow.org, and you can register for the meet and greet September 10th, 6 p.m. Eastern. I wanted to give a quick check on the free HE line, make sure I didn't miss any questions. Mr. Nero, if you had any questions for Dr. Valentine, your line should be open. And the person 8753, did either of you two have a question for Dr. Valentine?
Right now, I'm just taking it all in. It would be premature for me to ask a question at this time, but he's given a lot of information, and I need to give it a lot of thought.
Sure. Okay. Let's see. And the person 5445. Did you have a question for Dr. Valentine? Just checking 5445 and 8753. Did either of you two have questions?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I'm sorry?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Thank you, Gus, and thank you, Phil. I have a question for Phil. What do you think about women today having midwives delivering children inside their homes instead of going to the Europeanized hospitals?
I think it's exceptional. I think it's the way that we bring our children into the world without trauma, without the first thing being seen as a white man hovering over them, without them being slapped, without them being stuck with needles. If the midwife or the doula is a conscious doula, she would not cut the cord too soon. She would allow it to stop throbbing first. There are certain things about our African history and our African sciences that we need to resurrect if we're going to resurrect the people, if we're going to resuscitate the consciousness that built civilization. So yes, I think it is an exceptional idea that women stay at home and give birth at home, because that's the place where the highest vibration of the family is. So just the vibration of the home itself is conducive to a healthy child, because the environment of a hospital is disease. So think about that. And when you finish having the baby, they put them in this assembly line and line all these children up so you could look at them from behind a glass partition. No. I think it's an excellent idea. I think that the doula, being that the doula is conscious and the woman is conscious and she's doing the right thing, she's eating the right foods, and she's taking her Juice Plus. That's the next thing that we're recommending for women who are going to conceive, women who have conceived, and women who have had their babies. We are definitely promoting a product that we believe that after checking to see it, it was actually a product whose formula was put together by a herbal teacher of mine, a former teacher of mine, Dr. Umberto Santillo. And he has put together a formula for this thing called Juice Plus. And anybody wants to hear about it, they can go up to rethinkjuiceplus.com. Just go to rethink, R-E-T-H-I-N-K, juiceplus.com. Now, I don't promote products, never have, and those who know me and my reputation, I never did. But my queen turned me on to this because she knew what our philosophy of health was about no poisons, no vitamins, no kinds of toxic materials, that is predominantly about herbs. This, I found out, was just food, non-pesticides, non-GMO food, 17 fruits and vegetables in a capsule that will supplant and supplement all of the missing nutrients that we don't get even when we eat organic foods. So just on a side note, anybody who wishes to know how to enhance their nutrition, they should definitely check the Juice Plus at rethinkjuiceplus.com.
I have another question right quick before I leave. What do you think? Yeah, what do you think about getting a group of lawyers to possibly file a lawsuit against they're trying to implement homosexuality to like kindergartens?
Well, it depends, because some of the lawyers might be gay themselves. So who are you going to pick them? They're all in the closet. Some of them are. So it's going to be a difficult process. I think you should take your children out to school and teach them yourself. All you got to do is get a group and a family together of about 10 or 12 mothers, and then get a teacher who is retired, has old school knowledge of how to teach reading and writing, pay her $10 each or $20 each of y'all a week, give her a $200, $300, $400, maybe $500 a week salary just to teach your children during the day, something she loves to do. You know, you could pay her more than that, actually, if you can get out. I mean, the amount of money you pay sending your children to school, getting them ready, and all these different books. Are you kidding? We have teachers sitting around in our environment ain't doing nothing but collecting the cheapest and the lowest amount of Social Security. I mean, they aren't making any money. They would be loving to get some kind of compensation to teach the children, and you would tell the teacher what to teach your children, and you would have sane children. You understand? You send your children to them schools where they're going to be teaching homosexuality. They're going to feed them all kind of government cheese and all kinds of different types of filth, all kinds of nonsense that they're going to tell them. And, of course, most of the time they'll be sitting in front of a European teacher who don't give a damn about them anyway, and has been given information and books and certain types of curricula to make sure that you don't achieve nothing but consumerhood. They're sending their children to learn how to be producers and people who are employers, and they're teaching your children when they come down at 9 o'clock in the morning to be employees and consumers. So no, you need to take your children out of the school and begin to find places, schools and homeschooling situations that will teach your children and get sane children as the next generation.
Thank you for calling in with your questions, sir. I appreciate it. I think there were two other hands. I think Justice said she had a question as well. Justice, if you had a question for Dr. Valentine, go right ahead. Let's try that again. Yep, your line should be open. Did you have a question for Dr. Valentine?
Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sorry. I asked which one. I had one more question. This is a question in the area of education. Can you please give some suggestions of how to go through college with that least stress? Let me see. Okay, the question is, can you please give some suggestions of how to go through college with at least stress necessary?
Wow, that's a big question. Very difficult because college is about managing stress. And usually it's a place where you go and you have the ability to offload your stress with all kinds of weird and wild things to do, especially when you're on campus. But the best way to help with that, to go through it, is to do time management. Time management means to know what you're going to be doing during the day in your college curricula and manage that so that you don't fail to give the proper time to each course, and to manage your time so that you give time to each course substantively so that you could pass each course. Do not take too many courses, or do not overbook your year so that you're taking all these courses and then you have to make sure that you meet the criteria each time for midterms and then for finals and so forth, the amount of books that you have to spend money on and so forth. So you can minimize it depending on how long you want to be in college and how much, what type of curricula that you're going to choose for yourself. So it also has to do, say, if you're going to take some of the sciences, you're taking physics, you're taking, chemistry and all these. These are very stressful. So I would take maybe one or two stressful ones, and then the rest of them something that you know that you could pretty much handle. And, making sure that you meet your, if you're going for bachelor's and then master's and so forth, making sure that you meet the criteria in order to be able to achieve those degrees. But I would suggest that your health is very important, especially if you're going to be studying, especially women who are going to be studying, because reading is not very good for women. It usually causes a breakdown in their estrogen balance because of the fact that the eyes and the brain have to work very hard to process two-dimensional caricatures, especially on a screen as well, like the computer, where all the letters are pixelated, causing the eye to constantly focus back and forth, using up a lot of the vitamin E and materials in the system, especially those materials that are very important for her to make the proper estrogen. So a lot of heavy reading and a lot of heavy eye work can also undermine the ability of the woman to make balanced estrogen. So she would have problems with her menstrual cycle. They may be late or start early. They may be painful. All these different types of things could end up happening because, again, she's putting herself up under these types of stress. Also, she could end up having migraine headaches and so forth. So I would suggest, again, you go back to Re-Enhance, because that's what we've done for our grandchildren who are in college now. What we're doing is giving them and telling them about taking their Juice Plus, because we know that they eat all kind of junk pizzas and all kind of crap, and they try to study with all that starch and sugar and salt and all kinds of crap in them, and then who knows, they'll be sucking down some suds or in some brews and all that. So young people who don't have a sense of death or disease, they go all out. They test their bodies. They eat all kind of garbage. And because they're strong while they're young, they don't feel it. But it sometimes happens. So what we do is we recommend that young people take the Juice Plus. And also parents who have college children, if the parents were to join Juice Plus, they could get Juice Plus for free for their college children. As long as they're in college full time, they can get it for free. And parents can sign up and get the Juice Plus for free for their children who are age 4 and above. They can get it for 3 years for free. So yes, we know there's a lot of ways that they can compensate to mitigate the stress, to help into alleviating the stress by pre-planning, time management, and proper nutrition.
Does like the Juice Plus have like any like alcohol in it? Like, you know, like some? Just curious.
No. Juice Plus is not a vitamin. We do, however, tell people that they can open the capsules because the capsules are made from kosher animals. They tried to make the capsules out of vegetables, but the enzymes were so strong in the Juice Plus inside the capsules that it would undermine the integrity of the capsules, and the capsules would break up in the bottles. So they're working on a new gelatin cap, but until then, if you don't want to take any animal product, you just open it up like my wife and I do in there. Yeah, but there's no alcohol in there. There's no kind. It's not even a liquid. So it's actually dried. It's juiced. The fruits are juiced, and then it's air dried, so that all you get is the powder. If you were to take a lemon and squeeze the juice, and then take all the water out of the juice, what will be left is the essence of that orange, which are all of the phytonutrients and the enzymes, and that's exactly what Juice Plus is.
Okay. Well, thank you for being on the program. I hope to have you back, you know, to talk about more about, you know, like the Juice Plus and, you know, more of your work. Thank you very much for coming on the program.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Mm-hmm.
The caller in California, did you have a question for Dr. Valentine?
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Greetings, Dr. Valentine. I have a question about, I was watching the track and field a couple of days ago, and, you know, for the black females, you know, you have these dark-skinned black females, you know, athletes, very attractive, in my opinion. And, you know, one thing you notice is, like, they had, you know, the permed hair and whatnot. I mean, it just looked kind of off a little bit to have, like, you know, some people say queen or goddess or something like that. I mean, these females were just, they seem to be, like, you know, top of the line or something. I don't know how you would say it, but very, very attractive. But the hair was just, like, off, looked very strange. And I wanted to ask you, somebody said, turned me on to this, where they have these very, very fit and very attractive, dark-skinned black females, and they're in the porn. They're doing the porn where it's like the races have on, you know, KKK or the bars and stars or whatever, that southern flag.
St. Andrew's Cross.
Right, exactly. And I guess my question is, it seems like our dark-skinned females are being used in these porn industries, and it just seems like the best of our women are they're taking the best. It just seems, am I off on this? It just seems like this society has to go just on that basis alone. Like, it just seems very abnormal for in the world to have your women, the best of your women, the finest women of your women, to be used in, like, white supremacist porn videos. Do you have any thoughts on that? And do you have any thoughts on this these tumors. Like every female that I know over 25 seem to have these fibroid tumors. So however you want to.
Yeah, you have I see your concern, brother. I can see that it's a passion that is actually choking you. That you seem like you're one of the brothers that would actually just take a sword out and ride into what we look at just to chop up and try to save your women. But again, you got to remember, this is a conditioning that takes place from very young and very early. So what we're looking at, say you were looking at these alpha females. Well, they're not alpha females in the sense that they are alpha in a man's perspective of alpha women. Because a woman has the prowess of a man or runs like a man or does sports like a man, you got to remember that sports is not for the females. There's very few women that dealt with that. It's only when a society begins to degenerate do you see women doing what men do. So when a society is essentially doing usually sports, and I'll tell you this just before we go into the porn industry, sports was essentially what we see as now controlled and sophisticated management of what we call sports in the society is actually an elevation and acceleration of the rites of passage rituals that were actually conducted for males. So when you look at football and you look at basketball or you look at the different sports that have to do with throwing the javelin or throwing the shot put or jumping over high bars, these were certain things that males did as rites of passage to show females that they had the prowess to be able to take care of them. Now that we've come to a society where we have such a complex system in place, we don't have to do that. We have schools that are now the government managing how our children will take their rites of passage, and now we take those rituals and we sophisticate them. We put clothes on them, we put uniforms, different colors on them, and have them have these contests and turn it into a spectator sport, what they call sport. But the sport, if you look at the word where it came from, you should look at that word. Look up the etymology of the word sport, and you'll see that even men are not supposed to be doing this. But now that you elevated women to do it, and women are doing their best to come to some kind of equality with men, even with the feminist legislation of Title IX that undermine all male sports in the country. When you're looking at women who are doing male sports, these are not alpha women. These are women whose testosterone levels are suppressed, so they're not women anymore to begin with. And when they do the things that women do, when they are about women, 9 times out of 10, based upon what they did to cause enormous stress in the body, they change the mitochondria, they change the DNA, and they change the egg itself. And 9 times out of 10, a woman who has built her body up to demand testosterone like she does will end up robbing the necessary testosterone if that child is a male child growing in her system. So know that she is not an alpha female. She is a female, but she is not in the alpha. The alpha female is a hygienic or gynic woman who has all the feminine sensitivities that a woman is supposed to have to maintain the balance of her femininity. Now, as far as the porn industry is concerned, yes, you're lamenting over an effect. The thing is to check the cause. Women now who don't have fathers, young girls who don't have fathers to check their behavior, would do those things. They would become susceptible to men who are seducing them by telling them how beautiful they are, having them hear things that they're supposed to hear from their parents, and therefore have the guidance to know what and who. A girl is supposed to look for her father just like a boy is supposed to look for his mother, because the two of them, the father and the mother, have somehow trained them in the ways of masculinity and femininity that they are supposed to look for in women and in men. Now, if there is no father principle in the home and the girl is being raised by a woman who herself has issues with men, as well as has issues or has practices and does things with men, then that dovetails. There becomes a kind of numbing, a kind of complacency. so that any white man can come along, oh, you're beautiful, here's $1,000 if you do this for me. And so we have that kind of sickness in our society. And again, I told you that men change societies, not women. Women adapt. They adopt. And that's exactly what has happened. Survival of the feminine principle is based on us as men to help protect that. And men are the ones who actually were the law keepers as well as the lawmakers. Women were lawmakers as well. But the men were the law keepers, and they made sure that the women didn't do certain things because the elder women said that women should not do certain things, and they were kept in check. Well, the men made sure of that, but now we don't have that anymore. The structures of society have been undermined. In fact, they've been destroyed, and a pathological agent has been put into its place, financed by the Rockefeller family and others of their ilk.
Yes, can I just say I see the logic in what you said, and it definitely I see it a different way. Like when I look at the female athletes now, instead of seeing them as, like you use the term alpha, I will look at them differently. So yeah, I definitely see the logic. And could you talk about the tumors in these?
Yeah, sure. The fibroid tumors again come from the women who have an issue with their own female ego. It's the damaging of the female ego sets the precedent for the growing of the fibroid tumor. The damaging of the female ego could start. At age 11, 12, and 13, and how she was made to feel as a young girl. That could start the trigger. That could start the signature in that area that eventually conditions the behavior that causes her to eventually have her fibroid tumor. And women who are under so much stress, women who are particularly under stress now, because the stress factors have been raised so high, you're going to find them, and I told this is in my book, you'll find them at earlier stages in girls' lives today. I used to find back in the days when, back in the mid-'80s, I used to find women in their 35s and 40s would have the fibroid tumors. And the young girls, they didn't have any fibroid tumors back then. Now, I was studying this. I found them in the early 30s, and I said, whoa, what's going on? Then I found them in the late 20s, and now I'm finding them in the early 20s, and even in the 19s and 20s? No. It shows that we are degenerating as a species. We are degenerating as a culture and as a society, and that the first place to show the indication of degeneration is in the female. Once we begin to see her physiologically degenerate, that means something is going on in the society that's creating these conditions, and she is the first indicator.
The person that dialed in is a different person that dialed in from California. Did you have a question for Dr. Valentine?
Yes, thank you. Hi, Dr. Valentine. Thanks for coming on the show. This is great. My question to
Hello, Grace.
My question to you is, my name is Mary, but I was saying this is great.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. How do you think, since you said all of this about the feminist movement and how it has us in a coma and we're not really doing anything constructive for the community, how do you think we can get in line to where we release the power that we have over you and kind of submit and get back into order? Do you think that can happen, or how do you think that can happen with the black woman not wanting to release the power that we have over you?
Yes, very good question, but I don't think it's not that you're not doing anything for the community. I think that you're doing too much right now, and what you're not doing for the community is resting. And that is standing down. And we men have not stepped up to take the position necessary to relieve you of that. Now, as far as relinquishing power, you have to first enhance your trust factor. The only way that a woman releases her power to a man is if she trusts him. And today, this society makes sure that you don't trust men. And we, our men ourselves, are being trained by women to not be trusted. That's all they hear. That's what they hear. They are raised to hear you just like your father, you're this, you're A, B, C, D. Women say things and destroy men more than a bullet because it's lasting. It's carried on. So there are things that are being done, and I do not blame. I want this to be understood and overstood. This is not about blame. I'm not assigning blame. I am simply, as a scientist, stating the facts as I have microanalyzed them. I have seen certain behaviorisms that undermine as well as build up. And it isn't that the relinquishing of power has to come from a consensus of women seeing what they have done with the power and seeing what men have become without it. The problem is that we are not looking at men without power and what that looks like. We don't know what men without power looks like, or we haven't identified it as a disease. We do not identify it as a problem. We think that that's what men are. That's not what men are. That's what men who are in a pathological, psychological state act like. And men are crazy today because women are crazy today too. And we are judging ourselves based on our pathological expressions, based on the pathological expressions of oppression. So we have normalized our pathology and said, no, the black man is this or the black woman is that. No, we are living in a sick-ass society. So anybody that normalizes and thinks that they could be normal in a pathological society are themselves psychotic. So the only ones that are actually sane are the people in the asylums, because they're naturally reacting to what this Western civilization is about. If you think that you can be sane in the insanity that Western civilization has brought against us, then you're insane. So this is what we have to recognize, that we are now pretty much in an asylum, and that what we are judging as normal are psychotic reactions to a sick society. So we have to understand that a woman's distrust of a man is her holding on to power that she thinks she can wield. And that power comes out psychotically against the man when she begins to manipulate her environment to control him. When she begins to manipulate the situation by denying him access to his children. And we as men propagate that situation by brutalizing you. This is how they have contained our ability to fight back, by containing our righteous hostility that was supposed to be vented outward towards the enemy, towards our only partner in this whole thing, the trusted one person that would be the one there for us, and that is our woman. So my psychotic nature is to leash out. And this is an equation that they know. When control is lost, a man gets angry and a woman cries. So I feel I have lost control, so I'm going to lash out at that. Or I'm going to drink myself into a stupor. Or I'm going to crack myself into a stupor. Or I'm going to smoke myself into a stupor. Either way, I'm going to channel that hostility to myself or to my loved ones. Know that we are living in a pathological cocoon, and we are fighting our way out of it. And in the meantime, we are inflicting collateral damage upon ourselves because we are hurting the ones that we are supposed to love.
Did that answer your question, Mary?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Yes, that was great. Thank you. Thank you you so much for being on the show.
You're quite welcome, beloved. Thank you.
Dr. Valentine, do you have time for a final question? Oh, I'm sorry, Mary.
So I was just saying thank you to you also. I'm sorry to jump on your...
All good, all good. Or it's not all good, but thank you. Dr. Valentine, do you have time for a final question?
Yes, a final question, yes.
Okay. Last question. Person with a hand up, anonymous caller. Did you have a question for Dr. Valentine?
Yes, greetings. Can I be heard?
Yes,
Hello?
sir.
Yeah, so a final question would be, let's see. I agree that the context of global white supremacy is the dominant socio-material context and force that shapes and affects the earth. But is there a larger spiritual context that also shapes and affects the earth as well as the universe? That's the only question I have.
Beautiful question. Well, global white supremacy, to me, if you want to deal it in a broader spiritual context, when there is a body in sickness, then when you study the body, it goes through certain changes in order to be able to address what is the imbalance in that sickness. Know this, beloved African peoples, we fell, and only because we fell in our spiritual context did the rise of this cancer hit the planet. Know this. You don't catch a disease. You do things to undermine your ability to defend yourself against disease. Now, I don't want to be indelicate because I'm not racist, and if you study global white supremacy and racism, that I could never be racist because I don't have the power to be a racist. But I can react to racism and give it its proper articulation. And the thing about it is that as far as racism is concerned, and when we're dealing with global white supremacy, if you study natural healing, you know that the body reacts in certain ways when an invading something is placed in the system. Well, when you look at cancer cells are white. They are pale. They are called white blood cells. And say, for instance, when you eat a piece of pork and you take a sample of blood from the person who was eating a meal, which is basically meat or pork, you will see that the leukocytes or the leukocytic materials in the system rises by at least 1,000%, which means that white leukocytes, leukemic materials, can become cancerous to the body. Now, if you want to take it in a broader spiritual context, with the rise of the white man or the white entity, the white human, what I am looking at in the broader context is a hyper-materialistic expression of what became a disease, what I call the C.O.W.S syndrome, that created the condition in us that would then obviate our ability to deal with his rise, just like we've done something to the body over time to create conditions that form diseases like cancer. Spiritually speaking, we had to have fallen somewhere down the line. A lot of brothers and sisters are about trying to teach us what we were like when we were super beings. I mean, we were the kings and the gods of the earth, and we name ourselves the gods and all of that. Yeah. The secret to understanding who we were is to study why we fell. Nobody is taking any stock spiritually and done any kind of analysis on why Kemet fell, why the Harappan Empire fell, why the Tamuan Khan, so-called Olmec Mayas fell. There is a cycle to everything. We know that. Civilizations are cyclic. But what brought down a 10 to 25,000 year civilization that Africa was? What caused it to degenerate to the point where a cancerous condition has now swept across the planet, devouring and destroying all life? And I'm not talking about fighting and killing just men and women. I'm talking about wiping out what we, in our own sanity, would never think of touching, and that is Nature Mother itself. What caused us to degenerate to the point where our disease states unleashed this entity on the planet? That's what we need to be looking at for us to rise at this point. So yes, spiritually in the broader context, when we look at global white supremacy, we are looking at an effect. We are not looking at a cause. We can study the effect and find causes in small micromanaged places, but the overall context that you wish me to bring this into is the collective consciousness of the original peoples of this planet. What cycle of degeneracy for regeneration are we in at this point? And are we at the end of that disease cycle now that we see who he is, know what he is, know that we're about to come into contact with other forms of life from other planets? What and who is he, and who will we be in the next 25 to 100 years? These are the questions we need to ask.
Thank you.
Quite welcome.
Thank you. Context of white supremacy. Our guest, again, Dr. Phil Valentine. The website, UKSnow.org. Thank you so much, Dr. Valentine, for sharing some of your Sunday evening. I know you have tons of things going on. Before you get out of here, one of our longtime investors, she just wanted to ask, what is the fastest way to shrink uterine fibroids? She was saying she did not want surgery. If you have any information on that, that would be fantastic.
Yes, they have certain ways to shrink fibroids very quickly, but then they grow back just as quickly. You have to do it over a period of time. Now, for those of you who wish to deal with some of our naturopathic services, we'd be happy to. We have a range of different prices for the lengths of time you wish to stay with us. Our consultations are done by phone as well as over the internet, and we reach people all over the world. And what we would definitely do, I would recommend that she, call us at a number that's area code 386-456-9279. Again, 386-456-9279. And we'll discuss her situation because, my queen had, fibroids as well. In fact, she'll tell you the story about how we met. She had breast cancer and was about 2 weeks from surgery, and they were going to amputate. I told her what she needed to do, and in a month and a half, I think, she went back, and they were gone. So it is not something that cannot be done. We have friends who we know that we've given this particular program to, depending on how large they are. And how, what your resources are and how much you're ready to commit to the process, we'd be more than happy to do that. And again, we do it from a hygienic perspective, where we use nutrition as our medicine, not any forms of drugs. If there are needs for any herbs, we're also proficient in herbology as well, but we do not lead the healing mechanisms with herbs or any other forms of toxins like vitamins and so forth. Do, however, think about getting the Juice Plus, and like I said, go up to rethinkjuiceplus.com, rethinkjuiceplus.com, and or if you want more information on it and you're not sure about how to get it, just call me at area code 386-456-9279, and I'll walk you through the process. As far as the shrinking of fibroid tumors, if it's a fairly small one, then yes, we can work on reversing it. If it's a very large one, then yes, we could do that too, but do not expect any kind of serious movement on it if you've had it for a long time, for about a year. Because if you want to naturally heal it, you can either cut it out. Cut it out if you want to naturally heal it. Of course, you don't cut it. But if you want to naturally heal it, you have to do it by reversing it and dealing with the time it took to grow to that size. So what you're doing is just stopping and then reversing. It's like trying to stop, and then if you took a wrong turn, you have to go back the same length of time at the point where you took the wrong turn. Well, healing is something like that. You can accelerate it because once you start putting in the right materials into the body, as well as putting the right materials into the mind, then you can help to reverse it. And depending on how strong you are, sister, you can actually reverse it, and it may, depending again on your own body's intelligence, you may create the conditions in your body to get rid of it faster than normal. It all depends. Again, it's about a healing process and using the intelligence of the body. Okay?
The web address one more time, uksnow.org. uksnow.org. And again, the webinar is Sunday, September 4th, 7 p.m. Eastern. They will be going in depth on the wounded womb. Dr. Phil Valentine. Thank you so much for sharing some of your Sunday evening. Fantastic broadcast. I'm really grateful we could have you on the program, sir.
Thank you very much for your kind invitation. And make sure that when they do go up to UKS, that it's actually to sign up on the email, get on the mailing list. Of course, they can actually go up to the names up there and click the courses button and read through all the courses that we have and do that. But for the webinar, please put your name, not your name, I'm sorry, put your email address in the bottom right corner. And again, beloved brother, thank you so much for inviting me and allowing me to address the family in this way.
The pleasure was ours. Visit the website. I hope lots of folks will tune in for the webinar next Sunday evening, 7 p.m. And yes, make sure you put your email address in the box on the website. It's at the bottom of the page, bottom right corner, email address, and you'll get the updates, all the information for Dr. Phil Valentine. Thank you again, and we will definitely be in touch. Hopefully we can have you on the program again real soon.
Yes, thank you very much.
Bye.
Take care and have a great evening.
Bye-bye.
Context of white supremacy. Again, our guest, Dr. Phil Valentine. We will take a quick commercial break. We're actually going to do our news segment. Will be an audio clip. This is just posted on Racism Daily. They've been working feverishly. This is racism, white supremacy in the area of the world known as Russia. We had quite a bit of racism in athletics this week. Victim of white supremacy in the area of the world known as Italy and her victimization. This same thing, totally different area of the world, racism, white supremacy in Russia. 2 minutes and we'll be right back. Context of white supremacy.
Arriving in Moscow, Cameroon star Samuel Eto'o, among the world's highest paid players and the biggest ever signing to a Russian football club. Only one problem: he's black, and the Russian game is infested with racism.
It's really important that the club management believes in me, and I want to return this trust back to them.
Eto'o is the latest high-profile purchase by Dagestani club Anji Makhachkala and its oligarch owner. The club is based in the violence-torn North Caucasus, but it's on the pitch that the real threat exists, as Anji's captain, Brazilian star Roberto Carlos, discovered when a banana was thrown at him in June. He left the field in disgust. The banana is emblematic of racism in Russian football. Most Russian football officials do recognize that there's a problem with racism in the sport, but they insist it does not reflect the overall mood in society, and yet they appear to be at something of a loss to know what to do about it. As hosts of the 2018 World Cup, Russia is in search of a strategy. As yet none has emerged. There have been fines and there's talk of banning symbols of racism like the banana from Russian games. Governing officials declined our offer to comment. Individual clubs have launched anti-racism campaigns. St. Petersburg's Zenit produced this video warning that racist fans could be banned from stadiums after one offered a banana, again to Roberto Carlos, in a pre-match ceremony in March.
Skin doesn't have colour. A skin is just a skin. Racists are pigs.
There's a more sinister side to racial taunts. Many Russian clubs have a hard core of ultra-nationalist and neo-Nazi supporters, unhappy with players of colour, be they African, South American or from North Caucasus republics like Dagestan. Players like Samuel Eto'o will no doubt raise Angi's standing in the top flight, but he may face more than stiff competition on the field in Russia to earn his reported $14.5 million a season. Jonah Hull, Al Jazeera, Moscow.
Context of white supremacy. I didn't even look at the box office to see what Planet of the Apes did this weekend, but I know the last time I looked, it had already made over $130 million, and that was just through the first 3 weeks. Over $130 million. Yeah. Trifling white people worldwide. I totally forgot. We did the news article on this first broadcast of the day, and it too, racism, white supremacy in Australia. You got white people. They were at one of the sporting events in blackface. So yeah, common theme, white people, athletics, just going out to have a good time. I think Dr. Valentine, he said that's a big part of athletics there. It's kind of the rites of passage. And that's frequently about racism, white supremacy, mistreating black people. We will be back on Tuesday. We'll have a black male, 2011 blackout. We'll have a black male from the United Kingdom on the broadcast. He'll be discussing what's going down, the so-called rioting and the aftermath, their anti-black campaign in the UK. Mr. Nabil Abdul Rashid, black male. You can put his name in on YouTube. He has a lot of videos. And the more recent videos that he did, they were in direct response to the white supremacy in the UK. He was talking about the comments that David Sharkey made, saying that the white people were acting like black people and, you know, all the typical trifling racist commentary. But he had some great videos where he was responding to that and just calling it out for what it is, blatant white supremacy. But he'll be on the program, not tomorrow, Tuesday, August 30th. Broadcast time will be 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central, 12 noon Pacific. Mr. Nabil Abdul Rashid, black male, United Kingdom. Be really interesting to get some more perspective on the riots, particularly now that some time has passed, to get more information about the sentences and all that good stuff. Looking forward to catching up on what's been going down with the riots. I will double check to see if anyone has anything they would like to share. I feel like we have been here doing programs all day long. See if they have any views they would like to share on what they heard from Dr. Valentine, or I guess the earlier program, Prince Justice, joining us live from Nigeria. I'll also check. Good to hear from Mr. Nero. Again, know that he's still doing, I guess, as well as can be expected on the plantation. Person that called in from California with a hand up, did you have a question or comment?
Greetings, can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes when you click over, I can't tell, so I just ask to make sure. Yeah, constructive program. I don't know why, but I didn't think it would be as constructive as it was for some reason. I think, you know, I kind of might have some reasons why, because like the esoteric and all things like that, I don't really understand and stuff. So I heard him talking about a lot of metaphysics and stuff like that on the YouTube. So I didn't know exactly what he was going to say, but yeah, he changed my perspective on the sports just that fast. I mean, it was total logical what he said, and he said some things that like females shouldn't be reading and stuff. That's pretty interesting. But yeah, just on that sports issue, I think it'll help me, you know, from getting so upset when I watch it, and you know, because that's, you know, you think that that's a an elite athlete or whatever, but really that's a part of racism, white supremacy. Like, that's something that should not be even in the first place. And I don't know what you think about that. I would be interested in hearing what you think about that. But before that, I was going to say that to the black female that was asking about the fibroids, look up and do if you're going to follow up with Mr. Valentine, I would just use your own head and logic or whatever. But I just wanted you to look up the Gerson therapy. Gerson is spelled Gerson, and there are Google videos. Watch the videos, because if you want to shrink those tumors, you can juice. Get you a juicer and juice, and that'll put a rapid shrinkage on those tumors. But you can't eat any meat. That's the only thing. And your thoughts on your thoughts, Gus?
Was it on the athletics, the games? Is that what I was commenting on? Or?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
If you want.
I just want to make sure I'm clear before I respond. Am I responding to what Dr. Valentine had to say about how all of this is sick anyway, and that these the black females that you were seeing, that they aren't the alpha females anyway, and that that's these are people white people have selected to kind of participate in their games or whatever the activities are, and that's the way that they should be looked at, not as this is representative of who you should be trying to be and the best of black people. Is that what I'm responding to?
Yes, I think so. That sounds
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Just kind of changing our perspective and the way that we view things, like understanding that, particularly anything that's on television, major media coverage, white people want you to see this. White people have put these people in front of you to be worshipped, or for you to think, oh, this is the best of you all, the folks right here. And it's invariably, they have tainted, minimized, compromised these individuals, even if it looks great. Sometimes they'll offer you a victim of white supremacy that looks like, this is great. Looks like, this is progress. These are non-white people who got their act together and are doing things that make me feel good. But, I mean, if you just look below the surface, you can see how always racist man and racist woman, they are using non-white people for their benefit. Even if it looks like that non-white person is coming out okay, this is going to be working more for their benefit than anything else. And I think if you can kind of keep that in mind when you see non-white people being showcased on any stage, athletics or any other arena under white supremacy, when you see non-white people being showcased, you'll kind of keep that proper perspective. You'll view them as a victim and make sure that you remember white people are still in charge. That I think I've heard Mr. Fuller say, it's when you think about successful black person would be someone who is not subject to white supremacy, practices justice, kind of having that in mind for the gold standard, if you will, the alpha male or alpha female for black people. Having that in mind, I think that kind of keeps me in check when racist man, racist woman dangle an image out there in front of me. Black image, non-white image, white image, any image kind of keeps things in perspective for me. Those would be my thoughts. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Man, I lost perspective on that, man. So for a minute, I mean, just this couple of days with all the sports going on, Anderson Silva fight, and a lot of boxing I watched, and the track and field. I mean, they just seem like very prominent, royal type of individuals as you watch, because they're, you think they're very fit and everything like that, and yeah, that's showcasing. And even with the porn, I never would have thought in a million years that was showcasing. But from just from what I've been discussing and things like that with the racist, you know, and the chocolate, because they were called, the girls were called chocolate, like they were dark-skinned girls. And that's like showcasing. I think that that's showcasing. I think that that's put out there purposely to say, you know, look, we got the finest, you know, of your women, and ain't nothing you can do about it, you know, and stuff like that. Even though I do think that this so-called society needs to be done away with. I mean, like that's just unacceptable to me. A lot of things are unacceptable, but I just think that that's showcasing too, and I think I might have lost some perspective on that. And yeah, you know, Phil Valentine kind of, yeah, I like I said, and what you said too, it's totally logical, and that's how we should be thinking. The alpha female and the alpha male are, you know, I don't know what, I forgot how you said, but I just think that countering racism and is very important in choosing who you're going to admire or whatever the case may be. So, yeah, I'll
Here,
there.
Here. The female caller in California, I'll get you on as well. I'll also double check, see if Mr. Nero has anything he wants to get in. I'll get Nat Turner, your line is open as well. I'll just, I guess my comment I would throw, and I feel compelled almost, I think that's, at least for me, that is one of many reasons why I consistently tell people, you know, if you like the program, I don't care. If you don't like the program, I don't care. Actually, I'd rather say it, so what? That's really the way I prefer it. So what? Because that really amounts to a hill of beans as long as white supremacy still exists. And it just kind of keeps, at least for me, it kind of keeps all that in check about getting too high on any non-white person, regardless of what they're doing, as long as the system still exists. That's not the gold standard. At least for me, that's not the gold standard. Like, I don't care what that non-white person is doing. White supremacy still exists. Man, that's we got a ways to go. So that's just something that I try to keep in mind for myself about. And I've just found that keeps me from being disappointed, because I tell you, as long as white supremacy exists, white people, it's easy for them to embarrass non-white people and have you so where you'll be ready to kill that non-white. It's easy. I've seen it happen too many times. Just replace white supremacy with justice, and then once that's done, we can, you know, get to the accolades and all that, if that even needs to be done. The other folks that called in with a hand, did you all have comments or questions?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I had a question or a comment, really. Actually, it's a question and a comment. When he said that reading was harmful to women, did he offer a logical, like a counter or a solution? Well, if women shouldn't read, what should they do? You know, kind of threw me off when I read that on, somebody posted it on Facebook, and I was just wondering. And second, regarding showcasing and the sports and stuff, I haven't done the math on this yet, but I'm thinking when I look at TV, if you take away the sports figures and the entertainers that they show us in terms of black people, what do you have left on television? You know, when they dangle people in front of and say you can be this too if you work hard enough, i.e. John Henry. If you remove, you know, say this is an alpha male or an alpha female. All right, no more sports players, no more entertainers. What do they show us beyond that? So I don't know. It seems like that would be related to, you know, looking at the sports people. What if they were not there? What do we have? Do we have any other alpha black folks on television?
President Obama.
On the line, Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that was all I had to say. President Obama.
Has anyone else on the line read anything by Trojan Horse Press? Besides you, Gus?
Background noise, background noise.
Yeah, I was saying, like Trojan Horse and Black Love is a Revolutionary Act. I think Trojan Horse does an excellent job, and when Pam was on, they do an excellent job of describing what the brother just mentioned about showcase blacks. And I mean, I know that's not a widely used term. I use it a lot myself now, but that's basically what they are. I mean, they dangle athletes in front of us. They dangle entertainers in front of us, and it's to fool not only us but white people into thinking that black people have made it, and there's no racism, and especially there's no racism now because we have a black president, and so I look past a lot of that now that I've been really reading a lot more and just opening my eyes a lot more, because it's true. They that's what they do. They dangle these individuals in front of us who make a lot of money, and their faces are plastered on TV, and names are thrown around as being successful, and the facade of them being very successful has always been promoted because they do make a lot of money and they're good at what they do, whether it's playing ball or they're acting or whatever, and so I think we have to be very careful in how in the images that we accept. I know for myself as a father and a coach, I really dig deep in finding positive images of blacks that are not on TV for my child and the young people that I work with, because we get fooled very quickly into thinking that these showcase blacks they've made it. I mean, I had a woman get on me and she got mad at me because she thought I was talking about Oprah bad. And I wasn't talking about Oprah bad. I was just like, well, what has Oprah done? I mean, Oprah's black. She's one black woman, of course, but she's a billionaire. But what has she done to, try to attempt to reverse the condition that the collective group of black people suffer from, or just non-white people in general? And, I usually get attacked because it's an impression that I'm attacking successful black people. I'm like, no, I'm not attacking successful black people. I'm just asking, what have they done? It just doesn't seem like they do much. You know what I mean? They don't do anything at all. I mean, you'll hear about a little something here and there, and it's true. Oprah did send over her, I guess, last 20, 25 years of being on, TV, primetime, late afternoon TV. She sent a lot of young people to college. They don't talk about that. They never advertise, or they never talk about the fact that Oprah does do good things for young young black people or whatever, but we just constantly hear about, I guess, car giveaways and stuff like that. So I don't know. I just think that more of these individuals who are millionaires can just do so much more. So I tend not to gloat about those people. They're not even in my conversation when I'm talking to young people or even my children, because those are not the examples I think that, white supremacy will not allow us to use them. I don't think they're constructive examples in a white supremacist society. That's just me personally.
Mr. Nero, your line is open if you had a question or a comment. I did want to make sure that I got in, and I could be incorrect, but my understanding of the concept of showcasing, and that I believe is a term Mr. Fuller coined, Neely Fuller Jr. in his code book. Pam writes about it, and the authors of those books, Black Love is a Revolutionary Act and Trojan Horse, Death of a Dark Nation, they discuss that term as well, but I believe Neely Fuller coined that term. For me, the important thing is not so much that the non-white people who are showcased, that they do or don't do something to work against racism. I think the essence of that term, the way Mr. Fuller uses it, is that non-white people should keep in mind these people are under the thumb of racist man and racist woman, meaning racist man, racist woman control these people too. Don't be confused how much money this non-white person has, how much quote-unquote success they appear to have, how big their house is. White people still control them too. And to make sure that you do not ever get confused about or forget that. I think, Mr. Fuller, that is an important aspect, maybe the most important aspect of that concept, not so much what these people are doing or not doing to work against racism, white supremacy. Just want to make sure I clarified that. And I don't think these showcases are to confuse white people. I just want to be clear about that. I don't think white people get confused about racism. Non-white people get confused. I just want to throw out, I could be incorrect, but I wanted to throw out those two views on that concept. I think that's correct. Mr. Nero, your line is open if you had a question or comment.
Yeah, thank you, Gus. Very interesting program. I will have to re-listen to Mr. Valentine. I had him confused with Bobby Hemmett for some reason. And so it took me a while to realize that, wait a minute, I got him confused with someone else because I wasn't recognizing the voice. And I also share with 909, a bit of a surprise because I didn't think the show was going to be as constructive as it was, so much so that I need to go back and re-listen to it. I didn't agree with certain things, women not reading. I mean, I would have to see evidence to support that particular claim that he made, but because I didn't get that to me struck me as almost a bit spooky. But if he can back that up with evidence and it makes and it's logical and it makes sense, then I'd be willing to sign off on that. But I don't think he gave any evidence to that, so I don't know. But in listening to the archives, I was reminded of I think the program you did with Josh Wickett in regards to the insane asylum. I mean, for me, I have been called crazy so many times now that it doesn't even bother me. And so in listening to Mr. Valentine's presentation or lecture, it almost made sense now why I've been hearing that, because here I am telling people, hey, we're in an insane asylum. These things don't make sense, and pointing them out. And because they don't see it as an insane asylum, they see these things as normal. It makes sense that I'm the one that seems crazy to them. And so I was definitely reminded of, Josh Wickett's analogy of, how he sees things moving in that direction. For me, it's competition, and I've been saying that for years. Competition is a problem, and it should not exist. You don't see it in nature. Why are human beings engaging in this behavior? I don't see bees competing with wasps. I don't see blue jays competing with robins. They all just want to eat and drink. Now, if you just happen to get in their way, of course you will be eaten. But I don't see any of them saying, look, let's start a race. Let's race from point A to point B, and whoever gets there first gets a prize. Competition, to me, in and of itself, is just absolutely insane. I don't think a parent would tell their children, first one to the dinner table gets the one plate of food, and everybody else has to just sit there and watch them. But, I've explained this to people, and they don't get it. I think Mr. Valentine gets it.
Mr. Nero?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I just wanted to because I haven't talked to you in a while, so I wanted to say hello.
I didn't know you were still on the line, Justice. Good to hear from you. Mm-hmm. Justice has chastised me a bit through email.
I'm sorry?
No, I was saying, you had chastised me a bit through email.
Mm.
Yeah, Justice was like, hey, you don't know everything you need to know. You better get your ignorant self on the cows. Confused Negro, what's wrong with you? No, she didn't say that, but that's how I interpreted her email. Good to hear from you, Justice.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been having so many problems at work dealing with the Gentiles, commonly called white people. They've clearly decided that the person I work for, a non-white person, and we have white drivers, and they make it very difficult to be successful. And I've concluded that is their goal, is to delay his success, to make sure he does not become successful by not doing the things they're supposed to do. So it's a constant fight with them.
Mhm. Remember the email that you sent me about what happened at your job?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know if you still want me to share that on the program.
Oh, sure, go right ahead.
Okay. Well, I don't have my computer up anymore, but next time I will. So.
Okay.
That's funny. The caller at 5445. Did you have a question or comment? 5445, or are you just listening? (5445). Did you have a question or comment, or are you just listening? Assume they're
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, I was just thinking. I'm like, what he was saying about with the sports and women. It's kind of like confusing. Now that he brings it out the way it is, how sports really was like rites of passage, and how they bringing it out. And I looked in the magazine how they bringing out, I think, lingerie basketball, lingerie football, and it's just kind of like sick, I mean, I don't know. I'm just still listening, but I just wanted to, to comment on that.
That is indeed sick, because I have seen that also. And those females are wearing very little padding, and yet they're sticking each other almost like men.
Yeah, but like with football, when you look at football, it's really it's a very warfare type of way, and I think I don't know where I heard this from, but football was designed for the soldiers in battle, as far as in pastime, and the whole concept of football is to gain land. So when you think about sports, it's really about like warfare against the other team, no matter where you look at it. And for you to put females into it and making them like men in a combative type of situation, it goes to show you how society is way beyond a degenerated state, because the whole concept, from my opinion, what I've read, like female is beautiful. The female principle is beautiful, is life, is creation, is fruitful, multiplying, things of that nature.
Exactly. Not try to hit the snot bubbles out of somebody.
Absolutely.
Which is what this ladies football league, I think that's what it's called, if I'm not mistaken, seems to be about. And then they have them playing on turf, which is known to cause more serious injuries.
I actually know quite a few people who still think girls should be allowed to play football with boys. That I guess it's that I didn't really hear a lot of Dr. Valentine's interview. I have to go back in the archives, but I guess it's that feminist mentality of, if they can do it, we can do it, or whatever. And I coach a non-traditional sport, rugby, and it's a rough sport in itself, but I just like, I teach it to young people at a non-contact level just because I like the principles that it teaches, teamwork and working together and, physical fitness and stuff like that. But, I still get in these debates with people who feel as though that if a girl is up to the task and wants to play high school football, then she should be allowed. Even they disregard the physical differences between boys and girls after a certain age, that they should still be allowed to play football against boys. Oh, well, they can be the kicker. And that has happened. I live in the D.C. area, and I think there were a few teams back in the 90s who had girls as kickers. But the problem was that, you'd had to allocate another player to shadow her because, once you either you punt or you kick off, you now become a defensive player and you're eligible to be blocked. And they would have to assign, the coaches would have to assign one of their other players to kind of shadow her so other boys wouldn't be taking, from the opposite team, take cheap shots on her. And, people call it cheap shots, but I'm like, that's all within the context of the game. I mean, kickers get their clocks cleaned all the time. So because it's a girl now, she shouldn't, be hit like that. I mean, it's almost like she's stepping into an arena where she doesn't really belong. But because we have all this perceived gender equality and equal opportunity and all this other stuff, that she should have the right to go out there and, if she loves football, let her play football with the boys. And it's kind of crazy to me. It's not very logical. It doesn't make much sense to me.
Hey, I wanted to give out some information. I don't know if people have a pen or if they're going to maybe listen. For people that want to understand more about the females and the reading, I have read a lot about that particular subject, and there's a lot written on it. And one of the books that was written on it is called The Alphabet versus the Female. The Alphabet versus the Female. And so, yeah, I mean, that'll I think that's a good starting point. And there's a great documentary that's very good. It's called All Watched Over by Machines of Loving Grace. All Watched Over by Machines of Loving Grace. That goes into, it's a very good documentary, very good. I recommend people watch it.
All washed or watched?
Watched. All Watched Over by Machines of Loving Grace. Yeah, watched. There's been this long debate over whether the so-called book in itself is something that is detrimental to the human. You know what I'm saying? Or constructive. So, yeah, I've been looking at that information for a while, trying to get some better understanding of the difference between icons, which are like images, and it's just so much, man. I mean, really, this society, as far as I'm concerned, this whole thing has to be scrapped. It has to be scrapped. But I think for now, we do need. I mean, books are I can't really say, man. I mean, I do think books are important. I love to read, and I do have a lot of females in my life read a lot. I've noticed that, like, they read a lot. So I don't know if it's the amount of reading. I think what Valentine was saying was the amount of reading. The amount of reading is what he had a problem with. Man, I wish I could say more, but I just think that this whole system has to be scrapped, like, immediately. Because this stuff that's going on right now, like he was talking about being insane and this and trying to be sane and this. I mean, I know a lot of people that so-called, black revolutionaries and things like that, but they're capitalists. Like, they want to make it in this system. Like, they want the economy to come back to some type of stability and blah, blah, blah. I mean, to me, that stops you from getting rid of the system. Like, you really, if you really boil down your philosophy, is you appreciate the system. You want the system to go on. You want to profit in the system. You want to, like, have some, not so much. Yeah, you want to make it. I don't see how anybody would want to make it in this. I don't understand. I just, sorry, but it just seems like the system, these guys has to go. Like, man, that's it. I don't see any other way. But and Nero, yeah, it's good to hear from you. Good to hear from you.
Hey, well,
good to be heard.
Was, if not books, then what?
Maybe that's another program. Maybe he has a suggestion for that.
Yes, sir. I think that'll be a great program because there's a lot written on it, on books, and how they affect the brain, and that's what we're talking about, and how they affect biology, books, and how they affect biology. I think that would be an excellent program, and the porn industry, because I don't know if I'm sure somebody's writing on it, but somebody hit me up on, I didn't even know existed. I had no idea, like, straight up, man, no idea. Like, I was totally lost about what was going on in that field.
That's a program. People have been. I was gonna say people have been sending links with different information about racism and pornography. I think last month I wanted to make that a program because I think that should be like nailed in the coffin about this sex thing and white people. Because I don't know. Maybe people know about that and that's one of the secrets that we're holding. But I at least want to make sure that fewer people can say, well, I never heard of that. I didn't know about redneck confessions and white people in Klan outfits having sex with black females. And this is, real popular pornography. Yeah, hopefully that's just a matter of time. We'll do that, ASAP. We're going to go like 10 minutes and wrap things up. So 10 minutes.
Can I add this? There was somebody posted about the Mandigos, like the different groups of men, black men, that's endowed with a package, and then they're selected by white couples to perform certain acts while the husband is standing there being submissive, and while a group of black males party with his wife. And somebody posted a link, and I ain't had no idea about it, and one of the members in the group said there's like over 800 material links about that. So it's kind of shocking that this thing has been going on, and that's just a tip of the iceberg that I suspect, because there's a lot more stuff that people do in their home that they won't show or won't put on television or the internet.
Well, yeah, that's real. That's real. I know a guy. I know a few guys actually. They were in the military, and one said, back in his younger days when he was kind of wilding, he said in Australia, he said back in like the 80s when I think he was either in I'm not sure if it's the Navy or Army. I'm not sure which branch he was in, but he had stopped through Australia, and he was courted by a white couple at a bar that basically he said that my wife loves black men, and we'll pay you to come and have sex with her. All he wanted to do was watch. So that's real. And I mean, even like within the last few years, I know a guy who's a photographer, and he was doing some work for a gentleman and a white guy, and he met his wife in passing, and he said that just in talking after he finished his work one day, he was like, well, my wife really loves black guys. And she had to basically tell him, he was like, well, look, I'm only here to take pictures, dude. I'm not here to get down with anything like that. But, yeah, that's like the real deal. You know what I mean? I mean, these people are really into this stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, and, right, they request, like, they really want well-endowed black men come, have sex with their wives while they watch. And then, I guess afterwards, then they want to make love to their wife or something like that. But it's serious. And I mean, actually, and also in the porn industry, that's actually, that's actually one of the genres, if you will, in the porn industry, or one of the categories. Well-endowed black men and small white girls. You know what I mean? And I guess the pain they inflict on them, like some sadist type stuff. It's wild. It's a whole big gamut of that stuff that goes on. It's like almost like an underworld. And I know some people who delve into the swinger lifestyle, you know what I mean, and swinger parties and stuff, and that's huge. Black guys, they've gone up to swinger parties, and they might have been the only black males in there. And white dudes have stepped to them about their wives before white women have stepped to them. The crazy stuff, man. Crazy stuff.
They got those out here.
Doesn't Dr. Wilson have a chapter in her book talking about how the white female wants to have babies by a black male, and the white male, he promises her all the social economic status or something like that, and the white male wants to climb back into the womb, and I mean, she talks about it, why the white woman has sex with the black man, but, the white man won't let her have babies or something like that. Maybe Gus can expand on it. I'm in the car right now. I can't flip to the page.
I don't have the ISIS papers in front of me right now, so I can't put a hand on the page either. But she does talk about white women. I didn't really want to talk that much. Yeah, we only have a few minutes left. We have about 6 minutes left. It would take me quite a bit of the 6 minutes to explain that. But, yeah, she does talk about that in the ISIS papers, and maybe we'll have Dr. Wilson back. She can go into more detail about that. I'll mute my line.
So the Mandingo, I was just going to say that, so after reading the ISIS papers, that Mandingo party is not surprising. It makes sense.
I think from the little understanding I have about it, this porn industry, what it does is promotes so-called, it promotes the rape of non-white people by white people. That's the purpose of it. Is when you start seeing images of black people and white people having sex, images after image after image after image after image. Next thing you know, when you look at a white female as a non-white person or as a non-white male, you see him as a potential partner. And I think that's exactly what. And then with this racist with the KKK shirts on and stuff, that's even more conditioning. So that person doesn't have to be not only white, but they can be an overt racist, and you can still see them as a sexual partner. I think that is what this industry is created for, and this internet, that whole thing of non-white people watching this stuff, thinking it's just entertaining, it's extremely dangerous, and it's lethal. It's lethal, bottom line.
And through some of the reading that I'm doing, what's some of the worst racists, either like homosexuals or raping black women? You know, the J. Edgar Hoovers and, you know, the Thomas Jefferson. You know, they all like closet, I don't know the word, anti-sexuals or rapists. But at the same time, you know, they like, I hate this. I hate it. But, you know, they go home and they do it all day.
Yeah, they home. Man, yeah, exactly. And another thing, it makes it easy for a black female to get raped and nobody care. You watching porn and stuff with black females, and you hear about one being raped, you like, man, they giving themselves up to be raped all the time. You don't care about it, so you don't it's no outrage or whatever. So the white person gets away with rape. All this stuff, all these things are set up to desensitize and condition non-white people, man. And we ain't even, oh my goodness, man, we not equipped mentally, man, to handle this unless we just say like everything that they're doing is for our death, automatic. So you wouldn't even indulge in some of this stuff. We think some of this stuff is entertaining, or it's just this, it's just that, man. Not even knowing that these are your enemies. Anything that they put out there for freely, all the kids watching porn and whatnot, and it's all accepted. And you know, we're not thinking that this is our enemy. We still haven't got, you know, to that level. We still do things, watch their movies and whatnot, and think that it's just all good, and that's going to be our. I don't know if Dr. Phil was saying that they're on their way out, but they're going to take a lot of non-white people with them. That's what it looks like at this point.
Well, I find that we allow ourselves to be mistreated every time I hear somebody on TV, or, you know, I went and checked out the Redneck Confessions. You know, it's like Superhead or the proud gay black male. Well, I know I'm being mistreated, but I'm paid, though. I'm getting my chips. Ain't that what the proud gay black male said? As long as he's getting his chips, you know, Superhead always said it. I'm paid, though. You ain't got no money. You're broke. Yeah, but I'm not doing what you're doing, you know. So the super racist can, you know, handle his business by mistreating the non-white black people, and the non-white black people get their chips. And it's like, that's the relationship. You know, if the black people say, okay, it ain't about money no more, and I'm going to die.
That goes back to the news report that Gus did. I mean, if you get paid $14 million to play soccer in Germany, but you got to deal with bananas. I mean, you really got to deal with potentially one of them. They want to kill you. But this is what you're dealing with. So they want to kill you. Like, there's a large crowd that wants to kill you. Only thing separating that large crowd and yourself is other races. You know, the people that invested that $14 million into you, you got to think like, well, I guess they'll save me. But if this crowd get out of control, you feel me? It's like that's risking your life for $14 million. So
most of them soccer players, they got white girlfriends anyway. You know what I mean? All them dudes, man. Like you know, I read that story about Eto'o and Drogba and all them dudes, man, over in Europe, some African dudes playing soccer, man. They get paid big money and they deal with a lot of stuff, man. They deal with a lot of racism. And then at the end of the day, they got a white female on their arm.
Soothing lotion.
Yeah, they got that soothing lotion. They got that soothing lotion right on their arm. You know what I'm saying? And, of course, she'll do whatever he want her to do sexually. So, you know, I guess, right, that's the real soothing lotion right there. That's the lotion, the bath, water, a good meal, everything. You know what I'm saying? So they just make themselves immune to it. That money, they got the money, and they got the woman, I guess.
Well, I tell you what, if you don't take the money and you don't allow yourself to be mistreated, then they're gonna just lie on you. I mean, because the point is to kill you, and if I can be entertained while you're being murdered, it's frustrating. You don't want to. What do I say? I say I'm not white, I'm not gay, I'm not rich, and I don't mistreat people that look like me. So I got a problem.
Racist man and racist woman, that would be your problem, in my opinion. Racist man, racist woman, white people. That would be 10 minutes. Before we wrap the program again, we'll be back on Tuesday. Earlier broadcast, blackmail from the United Kingdom. The broadcast time will be 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central, and 12 noon Pacific. Nabil Abdul Rashid, black male, UK, the so-called riots and the aftermath. We'll be discussing that on Tuesday, August 30th. I will check with Mr. Nero to see if he has anything he would like to share, since we haven't heard from him in a while. But before I check in with Mr. Nero, I did want to share the definition. I think it is appropriate regarding what we've heard. Racial masochism. Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., the word guide, racial masochism, used this term to apply to a condition in which a non-white person has become so accustomed to being extremely abused by white supremacists that he or she seeks, expects, and welcomes the personal attention given to him or her through more abuse. Examples: non-white females in their socio-sexual subordinate interactions with white men, and in their social or anti-sexual interactions with white women during the existence of white supremacy. Non-white males when interacting directly with white men or white women during the existence of white supremacy find it easier and less offending to present themselves as effeminate or so-called homosexual, anti-sexual, and or as silly boys rather than as men. Non-white males and females, when in the presence of white people, choosing to interact with white people and or with each other in a manner that can best be described as pitiful, primitive, stupid, and or silly. According to compensatory counter-racist logic, such behavior is caused and or promoted by the system of white supremacy, either directly or indirectly in any one or more areas of activity. Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., the complimentary word guide to go with the code book. You can get a copy. The address is tiny.cc/Fuller in all caps. The address one more time, tiny.cc/Fuller in all caps. We will be back Tuesday, August 30th, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Pacific. Mr. Nero, did you have anything you wanted to share before we close out?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Just real quick, I'm reminded of something that Mr. Fuller said about the law of compensation, that if you take something away from somebody, you got to give them something in return. I suspect, their sports as well as the porn industry, for them is a pacifier for the enslavement era. Because ending it for them was like ending one great big party. such a big part of it that they even fought about it. So that's kind of how I'm seeing those two industries. If they didn't have it, they'd be far more brutal towards us today. There's the sports and the porn keeps them from raping more of us that they do rape on a daily basis as it is. It would be far worse if we didn't have those two things for them to, channel that energy into. And the other thing I just want to touch on is the anti-sexuality all throughout that film, Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I mean, it was just dripping with it. Even the name of the film, Rise of the Planet of the Apes. But I know we're out of time. Hopefully I'll get a chance to talk about it on the next broadcast.
Context of white supremacy, Mr. Nero, longtime investor. Good to hear from you, sir. Yeah.
Good to hear from you as well.
Hopefully we will get to hear more your thoughts on Planet of the Apes. Again, over 130 million at the box office already. The antics of racist man and racist woman. We will be back Tuesday, August 30th. I guess you can put my name in the hat too. I don't know. I was pleasantly surprised by the constructive value of the broadcast today. I don't know. I feel like I'd seen Dr. Valentine before, but I hadn't heard him speak. He wasn't using the term white supremacy when I heard him before. It might be as simple as that. I don't know. I had to think about it. I'll go back and listen, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. And thank you all for tuning in. Context of white supremacy signing out. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Thank you for tuning in.